Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Stronger than Angel, you say he is Supreme Kai. Chapter 1. Sixth Universe. On a gravity planet called Zamora. A 16-year-old boy with bare upper body came back to the entrance of a cave with a giant beast on his back. Boom. The boy threw the giant beast on his shoulders to the ground heavily, causing a burst of dust. It's been a year. It's been a year since I traveled through the Dragon Ball world, and I've lived a year as a savage. What a pity. The boy patted the ashes on his hands, and murmured. His name is Su Ming, and it is not difficult to hear from his words that he is a time traveler. A year ago, he traveled to this world. At first, he was quite confused. I thought I was in a dream, but after a few days of faking it, an electromechanical synthesis sound rang in my mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host, successfully binding the unlimited upgrade system. ... Hearing this kind of words, how can Su Ming still not be able to understand what the current situation is? Crossed over. Not dreaming. Unlimited upgrade system. As the name suggests, characters upgrade and get rewards. For every 5 levels, Su Ming will receive an upgrade package reward. A year has passed, and now he has grown from a rookie level 0 to the current level 5. System. I only upgraded to level 5 in a year, let me see how rewarding I can get for such a difficult upgrade. Su Ming found a big rock and sat down to communicate with the system. Congratulations to the host, successfully upgraded to level 5, and got an upgrade package. The sound of the system came. Open it for me. Su Ming said in anticipation. Ding. Congratulations to the host, open the upgrade package and get rewards. 1 trillion combat power, primary practice house, 500 fairy beans, Earth Gourmet house, advanced version of instant transmission. Quote. Receive the reward now or delay the reward. ... Hearing a series of reward prompts, Su Ming raised his eyebrows slightly, showing a little surprise on his face. 1 trillion combat power, instant transmission advanced version. A little something, but unfortunately not a lot. These rewards are pretty good rewards for Su Ming. But what he thought in his heart, the reward for hanging up the sky is too much less. So, just make do with it. Su Ming directly received the reward of this upgrade package. In the next second, there was a warm feeling all over his body, which made him moan almost comfortably. 3 seconds later, Su Ming glanced at his character attribute panel. Host. Su Ming. Level. 5. Bloodline. Human. Combat power. 1.2 trillion. Skills. 3 times no side effects Kaioken, Kamehameha Wave, Instant Transmission Advanced Version. Item. Immortal Bean X999, Earth Gourmet House, Elementary Practice House. ... This attribute panel is indescribably luxurious. However, if you think about it, it is only 760 years of IG now. With a combat power of 1.2 trillion, it is definitely an existence that can dominate the 7th universe. I'm in the 6th universe. In this time period, there shouldn't be too strong an existence. Thinking of this, Su Ming nodded in satisfaction. You know, a year ago, he had just traveled here, but he was just a little boy with a combat power of 5. But this year, it has grown to 1.2 trillion combat power. If this spreads to the ears of Son Goku and Vegeta, these 2 guys will probably want to die. Instant Transmission Advanced Version. Su Ming paid a lot of attention to the advanced version of instant transmission that he had just obtained, and after checking it, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Well known. In the Dragon Ball world, in addition to the instant transmission controlled by Son Goku, there is another instant transmission which is Supreme Kai's instant transmission. Son Goku's instant transmission, which relies on the breath of others to perform instant transmission. The Supreme Kai's instant transmission is a fixed-point instant transmission, an ability used to travel. As for the advanced version of instant transmission controlled by Su Ming at the moment, it is a combination of 2 instant transmissions. There is even an even more outrageous ability. As long as he has traveled to a parallel space-time world belonging to the Dragon Ball world, he can jump back and forth between the 2 worlds at will. Well, it looks like this time, there is still a little more for the upgrade package reward this time. Not a loss. Su Ming nodded in satisfaction, and looked aside. The corpse of the giant beast entered his line of sight. According to his previous life, this giant beast will definitely be his ration for the next few days. But now, no more. He who owns the Earth Gourmet house still talks about cooking by himself or finding ingredients by himself. Immediately, Su Ming jumped off the big rock, and while walking, looked at the delicacies in the Earth Gourmet house. Sichuan cuisine, Cantonese cuisine, Shun cuisine. As soon as Su Ming's mind entered the Earth Gourmet restaurant, famous dishes from all over China immediately came into view. Only after seeing this did he understand. The delicacies in this Earth Gourmet house are all the delicacies from the Earth in his previous life. Certainly, Su Ming didn't have much interest in food from other countries, so he just ignored the pass. Sichuan food. As a native of Yunnan, Guizhou, Sichuan and Chongqing in his previous life, Su Ming's first choice is of course the local dishes that suit his own taste. Spicy chicken, Kung Pao chicken, exploding bullfrogs. Su Ming followed the names of the dishes, and his saliva immediately dripped from the tip of his chin to the floor. Call out. At this moment, a piercing sound suddenly resounded in the field. Next second, a green-skinned man with a fat body, wearing exclusive Supreme Kai clothing, appeared right in front of Su Ming. Su Ming, what are you doing? How did the holizy flow all over the place? The man opened his mouth to speak, and seeing Su Ming's appearance, he couldn't help being stunned. Foi! Su Ming was pulled back to reality by the man's voice, and looked towards him with a look of surprise on his face. Why are you here? Ha ha, of course I have something to look for you. Foi laughed. 10 months ago, Su Ming ran into Supreme Kai Fuwa from the 6th universe on this gravitational planet. As an old Dragon Ball fan, Su Ming naturally recognized him immediately. Therefore, through some story exchanges, the two also established some connections. From then on, Fuwa would come to this gravity planet to listen to novel stories told by Su Ming whenever he was free. In fact, these so-called novel stories are nothing more than a patchwork of some ancient Chinese myths from Su Ming's previous life and some online novels. This may not be very attractive to people from previous lives. But you know, this is a different world. It's a world of animation. How can I hear these unconstrained stories? Thus, it can be said that Fuwa became fascinated instantly. What's up? While Su Ming was talking, he took a table out of the system's built-in space, and then, under the shocked gaze of Fuwa, with a big wave of his hand, a series of Chinese delicacies appeared on the table. Su Ming, what you did just now, could it be that you have a skill in your sleeve? Seeing Su Ming's show, Fuwa's eyes widened immediately, and he exclaimed and asked. The art of heaven and earth in the sleeve. The corner of Su Ming's mouth twitched slightly. It seemed that this guy really took the fairy tales he told seriously. But, Su Ming seemed to think of something, and his eyes could not help but focus. Things like time travel and systems exist, so does the ancient myth of his previous life also exist. It's just that he didn't have the ability to see those hidden things in the world in his previous life. Thinking of this, Su Ming couldn't help narrowing his eyes slightly. Su Ming. At this time, Fuwa's voice came again, but he was very pleasantly surprised. Are these all delicacies? The fragrance that comes out almost makes my saliva almost flow out. Help! Hearing Fuwa's excited shout, Su Ming regained his composure. Seeing him standing not far from the table, drooling on the ground, he couldn't help shaking his head and laughing. There is one thing to say, when he watched the Dragon Ball Super anime in his previous life, he really didn't notice these Supreme Kai or something. Of course, Supreme Kai Shin of the 7th universe, he must have noticed. After all, the guy's presence comes from his cowardly performance at Majin Buu's length. Foi, eat it in big mouthfuls. However, the taste of these delicacies is slightly heavy, I hope you can bear it. Su Ming smiled slightly. After all, he lived on this gravity planet for a year, and the tastes and styles of the Aborigines can probably explain some of the tastes of the Dragon Ball world. It's too bland and I won't talk about it. For him, who was born in Yunnan, Guizhou, Sichuan and Chongqing, it is not spicy. This is the biggest regret. Therefore, if it is the first time for Fuwa to eat spicy food, he will definitely not be able to stand up to the heavy-tasting food this time. I'm starting. Without further ado, Fuwa was ready to start directly. Snapped. With a shunpo, Su Ming tapped his outstretched hand with a pair of chopsticks. Use this. Su Ming handed him the chopsticks, and then showed Fuwa a demonstration with a pair of chopsticks in his hand. Fu imitated a chili pepper and put it into his mouth, while Su Ming on the other side was silent. From his trembling shoulders, it was not difficult to see that he was suppressing a smile. Woo! Moment. The moment the hot pepper entered the mouth, streams of steam-like air flowed out of Fu's head, and his green skin immediately turned red. Hiss. Call. Hiss. Call. ... Fu was sucked in a burst of cold air, and beads of sweat condensed on his forehead and cheeks. This. Hiss. Call. ... Fu couldn't say a word, he could only keep fanning his mouth, trying to relieve the pain caused by spicy pepper. Ahem. Su Ming couldn't help laughing, coughed twice, and then put a piece of spicy chicken into his mouth. While chewing, he said vaguely, "Foy, yours is just a seasoning. The real food, but these chickens." Hiss. Call. Hiss. Call. ... In response to Su Ming, there was only a sound of inhaling and exhaling. Su Ming smiled lightly and shook his head. Let Fu himself enjoy the sour feeling brought by the spicy taste. Next, Su Ming wheezed and enjoyed the food. A whole table of delicacies was wiped out by Su Ming and Fu within an hour. Among them, a plate of hot and sour potato shreds was licked clean by Fu. Apparently, hot and sour was the real hit for his taste. Cool. It's so cool. After eating and drinking, Fu leaned comfortably on the chair, narrowed his eyes slightly, and his face was full of enjoyment. This food feast is the most shocking and makes his scalp tingle the most since he has lived for so long. At the same time, it is also his favorite, the most delicious. He. Su Ming chuckled, and said, "Did you just say you wanted to find me?" "Oh, if you don't ask, I forgot for a while." It seemed to be a serious matter. Fu sat up suddenly, looked at Su Ming, and said in a deep voice, "I remember you controlled instant transmission, right?" "That's right." Su Ming nodded. He had mastered the ordinary instant transmission half a year ago, and even used this skill in front of Fu. "I told you before that the universe we are in is the 6th universe. And I am actually the Supreme Kai of this universe." Foy spoke. Su Ming looked at Fu quietly, but didn't answer. "Come today, I want to invite you to accompany me to the Supreme Kai star of the 6th universe." Fu cleared his throat, then lowered his voice, and asked tentatively, "And Su Ming, do you want to be the Supreme Kai of the 6th universe?" "Okay." Hearing Fu's words, Su Ming was stunned. What is rhythm? Want him to be the Supreme Kai of the 6th universe? As a die-hard fan who has watched Dragon Ball countless times, how could Su Ming not know that Supreme Kai is bound to a universe gods of destruction? Supreme Kai dies, gods of destruction dies. In the same way, if gods of destruction dies, Supreme Kai will die too. Although, with the strength of gods of destruction, it is very difficult to die. But pay attention, for Su Ming, he is bound to an infinite upgrade system. Every time you level up, you can get a huge improvement. His strength, it is no exaggeration to say that one day in the future, he will definitely be able to stand at the top of the pyramid of the entire Dragon Ball world. So, making him bind his life to gods of destruction, wouldn't that give him a big weakness? But don't say that after he fully grows up, he can lift this restriction at any time. But what if the gods of destruction Champa of the 6th universe died for unknown reasons before he even matured? Don't be afraid of 10,000, just in case. It is absolutely impossible for Su Ming to incorporate such uncertain factors into his own settings. I reject. Su Ming shook his head and said, "Fu, I am not capable of Supreme Kai, you should find someone else." Su Ming. Seeing that Su Ming directly refused, Fu said again immediately, "I think you should be a person who likes freedom, but I really want to introduce you to that adult. So, what I mean is, are you willing to be the 6th universe's trainee Supreme Kai?" This is the purpose of Fu. That Lord, apprentice Supreme Kai. Hearing what Fu said, Su Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. Except for that guy Champa, there is probably no other god who can be called a master by Shendu, the king of the 6th universe. If there is, it can only be gods of destruction from other universes. Yes, Foy nodded and said with a light smile, "I heard you say before that you want to become stronger. And the adult I want to introduce to you is gods of destruction from our 6th universe. He is the most powerful existence in this universe." Heard the words, Su Ming fell silent for a while, and couldn't help but take a deep look at the Supreme Kai of the 6th universe. He didn't expect that the two had only known each other for less than a year, and this guy would be so kind as to write down his previous words. It's clear that the 6th universe's Supreme Kai has a lot of admiration for him. It's just a name of the 6th universe trainee Supreme Kai. Su Ming's eyes flickered, and he asked. That's right. Foy nodded. It is good. After Su Ming hesitated for a second, he nodded in agreement. His promise this time, first of all, is Foy's response to his appreciation. Second, that is the unlimited upgrade system. This system requires experience points to determine upgrades. The way to gain experience points is firstly to fight, secondly to kill enemies, and thirdly to do tasks. The reason why Su Ming agreed to become the trainee Supreme Kai of the 6th universe was purely because Fuwa would introduce gods of destruction, Champa of the 6th universe, to him. In Su Ming's impression, Champa's strength is not as strong as Beerus's, and even among the 12 universes, he can be regarded as the lowest level gods of destruction. But, to be honest, no matter how strong Champa's own strength is, he is still a real gods of destruction, a god who is above all living beings in a universe. Being able to fight this guy, I think my upgrade speed will be much faster. Su Ming's eyes shone with a strange brilliance. That day, Su Ming and Fuwa left this gravitational planet and went to the Supreme Kai star in the 6th universe. After being unable to refuse Supreme Kai's gaze, Su Ming could only go to the gods of destruction world of the 6th universe with Fuwa with a bitter face. Now, within the gods of destruction realm of the 6th universe, Champa and Vados were sitting in front of a stone table, staring at a peach-like thing on the stone table in a daze. Lord Champa, sudden, Fuwa and Su Ming came, and the former called out softly. Base, moment, concentrated, Champa jumped up from his seat. Ha, it's Fuwa. Champa regained his composure and breathed a sigh of relief. As the gods of destruction, he was so absent-minded that he didn't even know that someone was coming to him. He really was an idiot. Su Ming looked curiously at the peach-like thing on the stone table, not understanding why Vados and Champa were so engrossed in staring at the peach. Who is this? Only then did Champa notice the existence of Su Ming, and his brows furrowed. A young man wearing Supreme Kai clothing, could this be Foy's new disciple? Master Champa, this is the disciple I just accepted, named Su Ming. Fuwa bowed and saluted naively, and then introduced Su Ming and pulled Su Ming out from behind. Su Ming greets Master Champa. Su Ming knew that this fat man was not easy to mess with. He was a very irritable person, so he cupped his fists neither humble and smiled at him. Unexpectedly, Fuwa, you will also accept disciples, ha ha ha. Champa casually glanced at Su Ming again, then withdrew his gaze, then stared at the peach-like thing on the stone table, and said, Vados, are you sure you can eat this thing? Sure. Vados nodded heavily, seeming to see the skeptical look on Champa's face, and then she added, at least, I saw a monkey eat it. Monkey, have eaten it. The expression on Su Ming's face gradually became a little weird. So, what looks like a peach on the stone table is actually a peach. Ahem, that. Seeing the awkward atmosphere, Fuwa immediately cleared his throat, stood up and said, Master Champa, if you want to eat delicious food, Su Ming should be able to satisfy your desire for tongue and tongue. Okay. Hearing Fuwa's words, Champa turned his head around again, stared at him first, and then fixed his eyes on Su Ming. The suspicion on his face deepened, and he said, it's just him, sure he can satisfy my need for food. This look, this expression, purely, he looks down on Su Ming's ability to make delicious food that satisfies him. Fwa, Master Champa is in a high position, what delicious food has not been eaten? If it were the former Su Ming, perhaps he would have been agitated by Champa's words and expression. But now Su Ming's heart is very calm. He understands the lethality of Chinese food. If Champa missed it, it would be his loss if he didn't eat it. After knowing the power of Chinese cuisine later, Champa can only regret his arrogance this time. For Su Ming, it doesn't matter whether it hurts or not. Hearing what Su Ming said, Fuwa opened his mouth slightly, but for a moment he didn't know what to say. Before the change, even if Su Ming himself said that he could have excellent food, Foy would not believe it. But not long ago, he enjoyed a gluttonous feast, although he did not eat as much food as Champa. But, He can also tell that the delicacy that this guy Su Ming brought out is definitely a super delicacy, and it is definitely a delicacy that can shock Champa. He, even if you still have some eyesight. Champa turned around and stared at the peaches on the stone table, feeling bored for a while. The monkey eats deliciously. If he also eats deliciously, wouldn't he be no different from a monkey? After waving his hand, Champa said flatly, Vados, throw this thing away. Yes, Master Champa. Vados nodded, and immediately wiped away the peaches on the stone table. Come on, Fuwa, you came this time just to introduce me to your new disciple. Champa Shiren sat down, and said calmly, besides, you, a newly recruited disciple, don't have much respect for you. You don't even use a single honorific, just call you by your name. Lord Champa. Fuwa smiled bitterly. Although Su Ming is my disciple on the surface, in fact, I have no ability to be his teacher. He really has nothing to teach Su Ming. Instant transmission, others are born with this ability. Strength. Although he didn't know Su Ming's real combat power, but compared to him, he was absolutely powerful, not a star. As for knowledge, as early as when the two met, Su Ming used the knowledge he knew on Earth to defeat Fu Wagon. Otherwise, why would he, the Supreme Kai of the universe, favor a human being like Su Ming, and even personally invite him to become the Supreme Kai of the 6th universe as an apprentice Supreme Kai? Oh, so, this kid's strength is quite good. Hearing what Fuwa said, Champa immediately set his eyes on Su Ming again, raised his eyebrows, and said lightly, Boy, I just happen to be a little bored, why don't you let me see how your strength is, how about it? It is good. Su Ming directly nodded in agreement. Okay. Seeing that Su Ming agreed so readily, Champa was taken aback for a moment. He had just said it casually, and wanted to verbally suppress this brat, but he didn't expect that the latter would agree so decisively, which would be difficult for Champa for a while. Doesn't he know who I am? Champa looked at Fuwa and asked in amazement. You are the most powerful god in the 6th universe. Su Ming continued. That's why, the kid wants to see how weak he is now. Cultivation is like sailing against the current, if you don't advance, you will retreat. In the same way, if you don't fight against powerful beings, you will sit in the sky and think that the sky is as big as the mouth of the well. As soon as Su Ming's words came out, the pupils of Fuwa and Vados on one side constricted instantly. Classic. So classic. These words, for these two people of great wisdom, were enough to shock them. It was Champa. After hearing Su Ming's words, he was stunned. Although he only roughly understood the meaning, it didn't affect him in the slightest that the words were awesome. It is good. After being dazed for only 2 seconds, Champa clapped his hands and said, Today, I will let you understand, kid, how big and how high the sky of the 6th universe is. Call out. After the voice fell, Champa's figure disappeared in place. Next second, when he reappeared, he was already above the 10,000-meter altitude of the Gods of Destruction world. Come on, boy. Champa was condescending, overlooking Su Ming below like a real god, and twitched his fingers carelessly at him. Boom. Su Ming kicked his feet, and his whole body soared into the sky like a cannonball, and the impact did not stop until the height of 10,000 meters. Please. Su Ming's face was extremely solemn. He bowed to Champa, and the moment he raised his body again, his figure suddenly disappeared in the sky. Oh, when Su Ming appeared again, he had already arrived in front of Champa. The speed was so fast that even Champa couldn't help but twitched his brows, showing a little surprise on his face. Boom. But Champa just felt a little surprised. Raise your hand. His speed was even faster, and he punched directly and violently on Su Ming's fist. Boom. The two fists collided, and there was a low-pitched roar. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately afterwards, dazzling shadows of fists kept appearing in the sky. Su Ming's punches are fast, but Champa's punches are even faster. In just a few seconds, Su Ming threw at least dozens of punches. That's scary already, but Champa is even scarier. In just a few seconds, he threw out at least 200 punches or even more. Don't look at Su Ming's seemingly unchanged expression at the moment. In fact, his chest and abdomen have actually withstood Champa's countless punches. The good thing is that Champa has perfectly controlled his own strength. Although it made Su Ming feel pain, it is far from reaching the limit he can bear. Cool. Boom. Even though he was being beaten all the time, Su Ming became more and more excited as he fought. Because, not only was he excited about meeting his opponent, but he could also hear the notification sound from the system. Enjoy the battle, experience value +1. Enjoy the battle, experience value +2. Enjoy the battle, experience value +5. Just 10 or 20 seconds of fighting time. Su Ming found that his experience from level 5 to level 6 had been gained by as much as half. Outrageous. Su Ming threw a backhand punch, and after flying back a few hundred meters, he spit out these 2 words with a look of shock on his face. He. Boy, your strength is indeed good. But now, after seeing my strength, you should feel fear. When Champa heard Su Ming's words, he immediately shrieked. He thought that what Su Ming said was outrageous because he was lamenting his formidable strength, but he didn't know that what Su Ming was more shocked at the moment was his skyrocketing experience value. Come again. Boom. Su Ming was thoroughly excited. In the past, how many tasks issued by the system and how many beasts have been killed can only get a little bit of experience. Now, but it was obtained in less than a minute. How can this not make Su Ming excited? How can it not make him full of fighting spirit? Moment. Su Ming completely exploded the energy in his whole body, and ordinary white energy flames burst out all over his body. Boom. Su Ming's whole body was like a cannonball, and he charged in front of Champa in an instant. Boom. Boom. The two punched each other. Boom. 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 Moment. 10 punches came out against each other. Boom. 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 It was another moment of breathing, and the two punched each other at least dozens of times. The more Su Ming fought, the more excited he became, but the more he fought, Champa became more surprised. This kid was able to catch up with his current speed, and he did seem to have something on hand. But, Champa's eyes narrowed slightly, and after avoiding Su Ming's punch, he reached out and grabbed it with a smirk on his face, only to hear his voice ringing in Su Ming's ear. This you dare to catch the flaws, your strength is good, but your actual combat ability is still a little bit worse. Call out. At the moment when Champa's proud words fell, Su Ming, who was supposed to be caught by him, suddenly disappeared from his sight. Lord Champa, I'm on top of you. Su Ming's cold voice came from Champa's head. Next second, Kamehameha wave. Boom. As Su Ming's roar resounded through the sky, a blue light that shone to the extreme exploded. Boom. Rumble. The deafening roar of the explosion followed. Nani. Below. When Fuwa saw this scene, a look of shock appeared on his face. He originally thought that he had overestimated Su Ming's strength, but now it seems that he still underestimated Su Ming's strength. Fuwa, this new disciple you recruited is quite interesting. Vados took a deep look at Su Ming, who was panting in the sky, and chuckled lightly. I didn't expect Su Ming's strength to be so terrifying. Fuwa smiled bitterly and shook his head. Now it seems that he invited someone to be the Supreme Kai of the 6th universe. Doesn't he seem a bit out of his talent? Shouldn't such a potential rising star be handed over to Vados, the angel, to be cultivated? Maybe the 6th universe can give birth to another gods of destruction level combat power level existence. His strength is not terrible, what is terrible is his consciousness. This little guy's fighting talent far surpasses any gods of destruction I know. Vados spoke bluntly and gave Su Ming such an extremely high evaluation. She wasn't joking. From the very beginning, Su Ming has been at a disadvantage in fighting. But, as a very discerning existence, Vados can clearly see that this little guy has been growing as he continues to fight against Champa. And, this growth is not just a little bit of growth, it can be called a leap-like growth. Nani. Hearing Vados' praise, Foy looked up in disbelief. Now, the smoke caused by the explosion at an altitude of 10,000 meters slowly dissipated, and a somewhat embarrassed Champa appeared in the sight of several people. Champa raised his head and looked at Su Ming, who was panting slightly in the sky, his face darkened in vain. He was deflated. As the strongest god in the universe, today he is deflated in the hands of a weak human being. Boom. Champa's aura exploded suddenly. With him as the center, the terrifying energy pressure not only rushed towards the 4 directions, but also towards Su Ming in the sky extremely violently. Now, on the sky, Su Ming was sent flying dozens of meters by the terrifying energy pressure, and then he forcibly stabilized his body, looked at Champa below, and took a deep breath. Suddenly, he smiled. Boom. Next second, an astonishing red energy burst out from his body, soaring into the sky. Double, double, 4 times, ... Su Ming's breath began to double. This made Fua's face below show a look of shock. No, Vados on one side narrowed his eyes slightly, and blurted out, yes. 10 times Kaioken. Boom, moment. Su Ming's roar resounded throughout the sky of the gods of destruction world. And as his 10 times Kaioken exploded, his speed, strength, and desire to fight reached the peak in an instant. Call out. Su Ming's figure flickered and disappeared into the sky. Next second, when he reappeared, he had already appeared behind Champa. Oh, with Champa's strength, he naturally felt Su Ming behind him. The reason why he let out an "oh" was purely surprised at the speed of his explosion this time. Interesting. Before Champa turned around, he punched out with a backhand. Boom, boom. The two fists clashed together, and the two looked at each other. Not bad, boy, it looks like you have some strength. Champa's praise this time can be said to be a formal recognition of Su Ming's strength. But, far from enough. Boom. As Champa's calm voice fell, the strength of his fist increased a little, and Su Ming was blown away in an instant. Boom. Champa just raised some interest, so naturally it didn't end so well. The figure flashed and appeared behind Su Ming again. Boom. Just stretching out 2 fingers, Champa easily bounced Su Ming out again. Boom, boom. This time, Champa did not choose to attack, allowing Su Ming to fall straight to the ground from a height of 10,000 meters. In an instant, the dust was flying, and a large pit appeared in the sight of several people. Su Ming. Seeing this scene, Fua's expression changed suddenly, and he immediately flew towards the big pit. It's over, Vados said softly. Judging from the situation on the bright side, it seems that everything has settled, and Su Ming's defeat is a foregone conclusion. But, Vados felt that it was far from being as simple as it seemed. That little guy's performance is destined to represent the fighting power this time, and it is absolutely impossible to end so soon. It's over. Champa slowly descended from the sky, and after reaching Vados, he said calmly, I have to say, this kid's strength is really good. At least, among human beings, I rarely see such a powerful existence. Here, Fua quickly came to the top of the big pit, his face was full of anxiety. If he hadn't brought Su Ming to the 6th Universe Gods of Destruction interface to meet Champa, where would so many things have happened? Now, he was really worried about Su Ming's life and death. Su Ming, you must not die. Fua stared at the smoke and dust below, his face was full of worry, and he roared angrily. After a while, there was still no response, just when Fua was about to jump off the big pit. Cough, cough, cough. A slight cough sounded in the slowly dissipating smoke and dust. Hearing these coughs, the worried look on Fua's face instantly turned into a look of excitement and surprise. Su Ming, it's great that you didn't die. It is really a miracle to survive under such a powerful gods of destruction as Champa. Call out. Su Ming slowly flew from below to the sky above the big pit. At this moment, he looked extremely embarrassed, but with those bright and dark eyes, it was impossible to see that he was in the slightest. This guy, what else does he want to do? Fua was stunned. Seeing the white energy flame rising from Su Ming's body again, he fell into a state of confusion for an instant. Su Ming, do you still want to fight again? You don't want to die? Foy exclaimed. Foy. Su Ming looked down at Fua, smiled at his concern, and said, what I'm pursuing is my own limit. It's not just that Saiyan never has limits, he believes that all human beings have no limits at all. As long as you dare, the next limit is your starting point. But now, for Su Ming, he has crossed his own limit and arrived at a new starting point. Host. Su Ming. Level 6. Bloodline. Human. Combat power. 2 trillion. Skills. 10 times no side effects Kaioken, Ultra Instinct Mega, Kamehameha Wave, Instant Transmission Advanced Version. Item. Immortal Bean X999, Earth Gourmet House, Elementary Practice House. Su Ming took the time to check his character attribute panel, reached out to wipe the dust off his face, and grinned confidently. In the battle just now, he has successfully upgraded to level 6. Otherwise, he should have only controlled 3 times Kaioken. Why did he suddenly cast 10 times Kaioken? I have improved in all aspects, and I have also mastered a divine skill. Su Ming took a deep breath. He really didn't expect that he could control the realm of Ultra Instinct Zhao when he reached level 6. This kid is really resistant to beating. On Champa's side, seeing Su Ming flying towards the altitude of 10,000 meters again, he couldn't help being stunned for a while. He originally thought that Su Ming's limit had reached here, and although he didn't die from his attack, it shouldn't be a big problem if he couldn't move for a while. Now what? This kid looked very energetic, as if he hadn't been hit by the hundreds of punches he just threw out in an instant. Lord Champa, Vados seemed to sense something, and said softly, "This little guy named Su Ming is far from being as simple as you think." Cut. Facing Vados' reminder, Champa waved his hand casually. Thump. Immediately, I saw Champa stepping on his feet and soaring into the sky. In an instant, he and Su Ming once again stood at an altitude of 10,000 meters and looked at each other. Please. Su Ming obviously didn't want to talk nonsense, and at the same time he cupped his fists and bowed. His figure had disappeared in place. Boom. Su Ming's fist carried a fiery flame, just like a real flame. A punch hit Champa violently, so fast that it was almost impossible to resist. Boom, boom. The two fists collided, and within 0.1 seconds of touching each other, they quickly pulled away. Then the two kept punching, and afterimages flickered in the sky. Enjoy the battle, experience value +5. Enjoy the battle, experience value +5. Enjoy the battle, experience value +10. ... In just a few seconds, the two exchanged at least 100 punches. And, as Su Ming gradually adapted to Champa's fighting style, his punching speed became faster and faster. Coupled with the system notification sound that his experience value has increased constantly coming from his ears, Su Ming is not even mentioning how fierce he is at this moment, and he is not even a bit downcast at all. Drink. Boom. After the two of them punched each other and fled a short distance away, Su Ming let out a loud shout. The normal white flames on his body turned out to be a little silvery in that instant. Call out. Su Ming increased his speed to the extreme and rushed to Champa in an instant. Boom. A silvery arrogance flashed on Su Mingquan's body. Next second, before Champa could react, the fist was already straight on his face. Boom. Su Ming's strength is so great. With this punch, Champa's whole body was directly blasted hundreds of meters away, and then he slowly stabilized his body and stopped flying backwards. This kid. Champa covered his face and grinned for a while. Although Su Ming's strength is great, fortunately, his Champa's ability to resist punches is not bad. Although there is some pain, it didn't hurt him at all. The reason why he was a little irritable at the moment was that just now, he seemed to see that Su Ming's punch had a little extreme taste. Yes, delicious taste. What can be called the extreme intention can only be the extreme intention of freedom or the extreme intention of self. As a gods of destruction, Champa has mastered the perfect self-intention. Therefore, he is naturally very familiar with the taste of self-consciousness. Now, he wasn't sure whether Su Ming's punch that carried a little bit of extreme intention just now was self-intentional, so using the method of elimination, he could only draw a conclusion in the end. Su Ming's punch just now was very likely to have a taste of self-satisfaction. It's weird. Champa rubbed his face, looked at Su Ming floating in the sky not far away, and frowned suddenly. At this moment, Su Ming is just like the previous state, and there is no change at all, let alone the Ultra Instinct performance that shocked him. Therefore, he couldn't help but doubt, did he just have an illusion? No, it's not an illusion. Now, when Champa in the sky was a little doubtful about his feeling just now, Vados below, holding the angel staff, shook his head slightly. She can be 100% sure that this little guy named Su Ming just entered Ultra Instinct in that instant. However, as an angel, she has controlled the perfect Ultra Instinct, so she naturally knows Ultra Instinct very well. It's not a perfect Ultra Instinct, it's just a prototype, it's a sign of this realm. A strange gleam flashed in Vados' eyes, and he murmured, if that's the case, this little guy's surprise is too big. In the state of Ultra Instinct Zhao, that is not an ordinary person. No, it's not even something that ordinary gods can comprehend. And what about Su Ming? It's just a human being who has controlled a realm that even the gods have never controlled. If it is spread out, it will shock everyone's attention. 10,000 meters above the sky. Champa and Su Ming faced each other again. This time, Champa did not dare to underestimate Su Ming, and only heard him say indifferently, "Boy, I fully recognize your strength, and you are indeed qualified to share your life with me in the future." The strength shown by Su Ming today is definitely stronger than that guy Fuwa. Being able to share his life with such a powerful Supreme Kai after Fuwa abdicates in the future, he doesn't have to worry about his own safety. Please. Su Ming doesn't want to talk nonsense with Champa. His goal is only to go crazy at this moment to gain experience points and levels on this guy. Bring it on. Champa hooked his finger at Su Ming. The contempt was still serious. To this, Su Ming just smiled lightly. The man he is now is not the man he was before. He had just obtained the Ultra Instinct Mega Realm, and he had already thoroughly understood it while talking and laughing with Champa. Note that what he meant by understanding is not like Son Goku in the original book, using Ultra Instinct as a brand new transformation form. But, like an angel, he brought this realm into himself. In other words, in a sense, the realm of Ultra Instinct Zhao has been completely fused with himself and has become his passive skill. As for the passive skill of Ultra Instinct, as a die-hard fan of Dragon Ball, how could he not understand it? Master Champa, next, please be careful. Su Ming clasped his fists in salute, and when he straightened up, his figure flickered for a moment. There was not even a sound of breaking the air, and he appeared in front of Champa in the next second. What a speed! Facing Su Ming, who was so fast, Champa didn't even have time to react. At the same time as he sighed, another punch with a hint of extreme intent struck him suddenly, causing his pupils to constrict involuntarily. Fortunately, Champa's own strength was too strong, and he forcibly resisted Su Ming's extremely swift punch, and only after flying upside down for hundreds of meters, he easily stabilized his body. It's interesting, it seems that I really have to be a little more serious. Champa patted the dust on his clothes, and the corner of his mouth curled into a cold arc, and then he stretched out a finger, and said indifferently, "Half success. Next, I will use all my strength, half of it is here to fight with you. If you can withstand such a violent attack from me, then I will fully approve of you." Don't think that Champa is talking big. As the most powerful god in the universe, he has the qualifications and strength to say such pretentious words. This is why, among the 12 universes today, there are only 12 gods of destruction. Call out. Just when Su Ming was about to attack, suddenly, there was a sound of piercing through the air. Boom! The fist with the momentum of thunder suddenly hit Su Ming in the face. Champa's speed was indeed fast, stronger than that of Su Ming, and he didn't even notice that this guy appeared in front of him, and even punched him. Su Ming didn't react immediately, but don't forget, he has mastered Ultra Instinct Zhao. Thus, when Champa's fist was about to hit Su Ming's face, the latter just took a small step to the side, and just dodged this extremely violent punch. Nani, I'm afraid no one knows better than him how terrifying his half-strength and speed are. The picture he thought of was that after Su Ming took his punch, the upper hand in the battle would still be in his hands. However, Su Ming escaped. Yes, not only dodged, but when Champa had no time to be shocked, Su Ming dodged and flew behind him. Boom! With one punch, Su Ming hit him back. Ah da da da. Drink. In the sky, Su Ming's roar could not stop ringing. With every 100 punches, Champa groaned in pain from the sky. For this, Su Ming had no so-called sympathy, his fists clenched into fists, and he slammed hard on the chest of Champa, who was almost stunned by himself. Boom, boom, rumble, moment. Another figure fell from a height of 10,000 meters, and it happened that it also fell into the big pit. And, it was still the big pit that Su Ming fell into just now. This time, it's Champa. Boom, rumble. With the fall of Champa, the ground shook for a while, and the dust flew up for a moment, which looked terrible. Su Ming stood quietly in the sky, did not take advantage of the victory to pursue, and looked down coldly. Good. So terrifying strength. Below, Fua's eyes widened, and he looked at the smoke and dust rising from the big pit not far away with disbelief, and stuttered out such a sentence. It is not difficult to see from today's duel that Su Ming's strength is really strong enough. After all, his opponent is Champa, the strongest god in the 6th universe. Can fight against a gods of destruction to this point, how many people in the 6th universe can do it? 1 in a million. Master Champa seems to have underestimated this little guy, otherwise, he wouldn't be in such a mess. Vados shook his head with a light smile, and said, speaking of which, Fua, how did you know Su Ming? She suddenly became interested in Su Ming. This little guy's growth and fighting talent is ridiculously strong. In real comparison, even that lord is probably not as good as him. A year ago, I was on a gravity planet. Foy began to talk about how he met Su Ming. Oh, the skill of the universe in the sleeve, 72 changes. Havoc in the heavenly palace. It's a bit interesting. When it comes to Journey to the West, even the well-informed Angel Vados can't help being aroused a little interest. Boom. At this moment, Champa, who fell into the big pit, rushed to the sky and faced Su Ming again. I admit that I underestimated you a little before, but now, I will let you understand that even if I have only half of my strength, it is enough for you. Champa's voice has not yet completely fallen. Su Ming had already arrived in front of him with a dodge. Boom. Raising his hand, a terrifying low roar sounded like thunder. Next moment, Champa's face was hit again by a fist carrying a silver-white airflow. Crack. At this moment, it seemed as if the sound of a broken nose bone resounded in the field. Boom. Su Ming kicked his leg high, and when Champa was still immersed in the pain of the last second, he slammed into his abdomen. Boom. Moment. Champa's whole body was rushed to a higher sky. Call out. Su Ming soared into the sky, flying high above Champa, clenched his fists tightly, and hammered down on his chest. Boom. Boom. Rumble. This heavy hammer directly made Champa spit out a big mouthful of blood. Then it fell heavily on the ground, and a bottomless pit appeared again. This time, it belongs to Champa's own big pit. Su Ming made a dodge and appeared in the big pit. Now, Champa was lying on the ground, panting heavily, with an angry look on his face. Su Ming saw this, a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. This is the real battle, and he has no intention of holding back. After all, Champa's strength surpassed his by too much, and within the limit of his half-strength, he also didn't hold back a little bit. The reason for this situation is that they underestimated Su Ming's strength first. The second thing is that Su Ming controls the realm of Ultra Instinct. In the face of Champa, who only uses half of his strength, he can be invincible anytime and anywhere. Clatter. Su Ming didn't want to give Champa a chance to breathe, stepped forward, bent down and grabbed his face, then dragged him on the ground for at least several kilometers before stopping. Boom. Finally, Su Ming raised his foot and kicked it into the sky. But he didn't catch up, and squatted on the spot, placing his left and right hands on his waist in a calyx shape, and saw a blue light that shone to the extreme burst in his hand. Kamehameha Wave. The most out of the circle skill of Dragon Ball erupted from Su Ming's hand, and blasted firmly into the midair on Champa's body. Boom. Rumble. In an instant, deafening explosions roared in the sky. Call. On the other side, Foy reached out and wiped the sweat from his forehead, and let out a breath as if he was relieved. Gudong. Immediately afterwards, he swallowed again, and looked at Champa, who fell straight to the ground from the sky again, with a bitter smile on his face. Su Ming's strength is too terrifying. The combo just now was simply rubbing Champa, the powerful gods of destruction, on the ground, and the latter had no strength to fight back. Master Champa, who is half-strength, is no match for this little guy named Su Ming. Fua, you said that you can't teach him a little bit, it is true. Vados also took a deep breath, and a strange brilliance flowed in a pair of beautiful eyes. For a human being to be able to do such a thing, it can be seen that Su Ming is not easy. Vados, Master Champa, won't he just destroy Su Ming in anger? After a while of shock, Fua regained his composure, and looked at Su Ming, who was walking slowly, with a look of worry on his face. Foy still has a certain understanding of Champa's narrow-minded temper. Now being beaten up by a weak human being in his eyes, he might get angry and destroy Su Ming. No, Su Ming is now your nominal disciple, and a trainee Supreme Kai from the 6th universe, so he should be regarded as a preparatory deity. Vados smiled and said, so, even if Master Champa wants to destroy Su Ming, under the constraints of the universe's rules, he will not destroy Su Ming. Of course, in the next fight, maybe Su Ming will suffer an extremely brutal beating. As he spoke, Vados pursed his lips and laughed. Obviously, Champa will always remember today's battle, and will look for opportunities to say the words to fight again. After all, no matter what, he will find this place back. Su Ming, your strength is really terrifying. Su Ming came step by step, and Fuwa greeted him with a look of amazement on his face. Master Champa's strength is not bad. If he hadn't underestimated me, I wouldn't be able to beat him who only uses half of his strength. Su Ming knew very well that he was not the Champa with full firepower. Whenever the latter wants to play tricks, a stronger force erupts in an instant, and what awaits him is not to mention a violent beating, or even being killed in the instant of breathing is nothing more than a normal thing. Call out. There was a sound of breaking through the air, and a somewhat embarrassed Champa appeared beside them. He first glanced at Su Ming coldly, then looked at Vados, and said, Vados, you have mastered the perfect Ultra Instinct, so, tell me. Just now, did this kid carry a little extreme flavor? Champa couldn't imagine that he would lose so easily, and firmly believed that Su Ming had controlled the Ultra Instinct. I think you should ask the person concerned about this. Vados chuckled and looked towards Su Ming. Swish swish swish. In an instant, several people immediately set their eyes on Su Ming. Cough cough cough. Feeling the gazes of several people, Su Ming cleared his throat, and said, to tell you the truth, I do control the Ultra Instinct. But, it's just a prototype. Is it a sign? Vados' eyes flickered. Su Ming nodded. Good. Vados smiled appreciatively, nodded and said, your talent is very high, and you will become Supreme Kai in the future, and I am afraid that you will also be the most powerful Supreme Kai among the 18 universes. Miss Vados, you're overrated. Ha. 18 universes. Su Ming smiled modestly, and then suddenly reacted, his pupils constricted for a while, staring at Vados opposite him in disbelief, his eyes widened, and he exclaimed, what? There are 18 universes in this world. Didn't Foy tell you? Vados glanced at Fuwa on one side in surprise, and then continued, the universe we are in is the 6th universe, and there are a total of 18 universes in the entire big world. 8 universes. Su Ming held his breath at this moment, his expression changing endlessly. In the Dragon Ball world he knows, there are only 12 universes. Now, the Dragon Ball world he traveled to has 18 universes. What is going on? Wait, could it be? The Dragon Ball world also has multiple worlds. What I'm in right now is a certain multiple universe Dragon Ball world. Su Ming stared intently. As a top surfer in the 21st century, he has seen many novel theories similar to the concept of multiple universes, as well as similar popular science programs, or novels, animations, and movies. It is natural to understand the concept of multiple universes. That is to say, this world may not be much different from the Dragon Ball world in the original book, but there will still be a slight deviation in some minor settings. It is also commonly known as the second creation world. In an instant, Su Ming just told Vados that this world is composed of 18 universes, and he thinks he understands this world thoroughly. Supreme Kai's responsibility is to create planets and life, and to maintain the balance of the universe. Vados said lightly, and gods of destruction is to destroy planets that don't need to exist in the universe. The strength of most Supreme Kais is generally not high, but I think this evaluation, when you take office and become the 6th universe Supreme Kai, will completely subvert this objective topic. Between words, Vados all revealed their appreciation for Su Ming's strength. Overrated. Su Ming took a deep breath, folded his fists and bowed to Vados. I'm telling the truth, now your strength has already surpassed a crowd of Supreme Kai. Vados smiled slightly. A crowd of Supreme Kais. In other words, the Supreme Kais of the rest of the universe also have extremely powerful existences. Su Ming's eyes flickered, and he asked a question with interest. Certainly. Vados nodded. The Supreme Kai of the 13th universe, the Supreme Kai of the 17th universe, and the Supreme Kai of the 18th universe are all war gods, and they are powerful, even stronger than Master Champa. Okay. Hearing what Vados said, Su Ming showed doubts on his face. I have clearly said before that as long as he takes office and becomes the Supreme Kai of the 6th universe, he will overturn all gods' weak senses of Supreme Kai. Now, why is it that Supreme Kai is stronger than Champa? The Supreme Kai of the 13th universe, the 17th universe, and the 18th universe, in a sense, is not the real Supreme Kai. Instead, it is a member of the war gods, but because of the lack of Supreme Kai, it's just improvisation. Vados saw Su Ming's doubts, and explained with a chuckle impatiently. Understood. Su Ming suddenly realized. However, that's it, he is really more and more interested in exploring this Dragon Ball world with 18 universes. Goo. At this moment, a small sound resounded in the field. Su Ming looked left and right, and finally fixed his eyes on Champa's stomach. Good guy. The emotion was Champa's stomach growling. Ahem. Champa coughed twice in embarrassment. Master Champa, please believe me, Su Ming can definitely come up with very delicious food. Foy stood up again at this time. Obviously, he pointed out the problem again and again. First, I really want to improve Su Ming's status in Champa's eyes. The second thing, it must be because Washa food is so delicious, it makes him linger, can't stop savoring its beauty, and wants to have another meal. An hour later, 6th Universe Gods of Destruction Realm. It's so delicious. The food this time, I would like to call it the most delicious food in all universes. Champa leaned on the chair with a big belly, half closed her eyes, and her face was full of unsatisfactory expressions. An hour ago, with the attitude of giving it a try, Champa took the first bite of the Chinese food brought out by Su Ming. But with just one bite, he fell completely. Immediately afterwards, the second bite, and the third bite, in just a few seconds, swept away the whole plate of spicy chicken. Although he had never eaten spicy food, he ate the whole plate of chili directly. Although he was extremely uncomfortable at the time and drank more than a dozen glasses of ice water at one time, it did not affect his progress in eating delicious food. In just 1 hour, Su Ming didn't know how much food he took out from the gourmet house. All in all, Champa ate as much as he took, and his stomach was like a bottomless pit. Just like that, an hour passed, and Champa was completely paralyzed. Hi. With a toothpick in his mouth, Champa raised his head comfortably and burped, then patted his stomach, and said, Su Ming, can you save some of your delicacies for me? Can't save. Su Ming shook his head and said, food will spoil, which will affect the taste. After all, this is not instant food, with a long shelf life. Letting it go for a day or so is already the limit. So, Champa picked his teeth, and then continued, then thank you, you often come to the Gods of Destruction world and cook for me. Don't worry, I won't treat you badly. My strength is all taught by Vados. Don't you want to pursue your own limit? I think she can give you great help. He thought that this offer was very attractive to Su Ming, so he was not worried that he would refuse at all. Lord Champa. Su Ming shook his head, and said, often this kind of delicacy that makes people want to eat again requires high-end ingredients. Do you think that the ingredients are unlimited? Oh, it seems to be too. Champa blinked, and was sitting on a chair, holding his chin in his hands and thinking about it. After a while, he opened his mouth and said, can I eat it once a month? Hanging. Su Ming pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said, it took me a year to collect just this delicious meal today. Master Champa wants to eat it once a month, so the difficulty can be imagined. After all, it's the ingredients that limit my food. Champa hammered the table heavily in displeasure, and his face became gloomy. If I had known this, I wouldn't have eaten so much today. However, he couldn't do anything about it. In the end, he could only let out a heavy sigh. Su Ming on the other side shook his head and laughed lightly. All of this is of course his nonsense. As long as he wants, he can give Champa more control anytime and anywhere. But if you don't say that, whenever Champa wants to eat delicious food in the future, wouldn't he come to him when he is called, and go when he drinks it? Free. It is simply impossible to be reflected in Su Ming. Look at my mood. Su Ming looked at Champa with a gloomy face, and secretly laughed in his heart. However, in the recent period, he will definitely choose to come to the Gods of Destruction world frequently, or in other words, live directly in the Gods of Destruction world. After all, after the battle just now, he has completely understood that only fighting is the most important point to improve his level. At present, the only person who can allow him to gain unlimited level experience can only be a guy like Champa. In addition, Su Ming really can't think of anyone else who has this condition that allows him to gain such unlimited experience levels. Pity. Champa sighed heavily, and after licking his lips, a reminiscing look appeared on his face. Obviously, he just had a big meal, and he has already begun to miss the wonderful feeling of eating the delicious food just now. Next. Although Su Ming didn't live in the Gods of Destruction world of the 6th universe, he would come to fight with Champa every few days, and then listen to the guidance given to him by Vados. Time also passed by like this. A year passed by like a white horse passing by. IG 761, a day in June. Now, within the Gods of Destruction realm of the 6th universe, Su Ming slowly got up from the branch of a huge sacred tree. With neither joy nor sadness on his face, it was impossible to tell what kind of emotion he was in right now. Host: Su Ming. Level: 8. Bloodline: Human. Combat power: 20 trillion. Skills: 10x Kaioken without side effects, 0.2 second flash time, destructive power, Ultra Instinct Mega, Kamehameha Wave, Instant Transmission Advanced Version. Item: Immortal Bean X999, Earth Gourmet House, Elementary Practice House. After checking his character attribute panel, Su Ming narrowed his eyes slightly, and a satisfied smile gradually appeared on his expressionless face. In 1 year, the combat power has increased to as much as 20 trillion. His level has also been raised from level 6 to level 8. Don't think that this upgrade speed is slow enough. In fact, anyone who has played online games knows that as his level gets higher and higher, the experience he upgrades will also get higher and higher. Therefore, it is not an accident to upgrade 2 levels in 1 year. Certainly, the most important thing is that it is impossible for Su Ming to fight Champa all the time 365 days a year. Su Ming, Su Ming, Su Ming, this brat, where did he go? At this moment, a burst of shouts resounded in the entire Gods of Destruction world. Hearing Champa's shout, Su Ming shook his head helplessly and smiled. His figure flickered for a moment, and disappeared directly on the branches of the sacred tree in the next second. When he reappeared, he had already arrived in the palace where the Gods of Destruction lived. Master Champa, I'm here. Food, it will be done soon, don't worry. Chapter 11. An hour later. In the palace where the Gods of Destruction lived. A long table is filled with delicious Chinese delicacies. The fragrance overflowed, making Champa's saliva drool in the main seat. It's so fragrant, it's really delicious. It's a pity that I can only eat this once a year. If I can eat it once a month. No, even if I eat it once every 6 months, I feel extremely happy. Champa wiped his mouth, and then excitedly said, I'm starting. Crash. Moment. As Champa's voice fell, he immediately began to sweep the food on the table. It can almost be said that it is the way he is eating at the moment. In Journey to the West, Zhu Baji is like eating ginseng fruit. Although he has eaten it, in a sense, it seems that he has not eaten it. Su Ming shook his head while watching. According to Champa's way of eating, let alone 1 meal a year is not enough for him. Even 1 meal a day, he will never be satisfied. Compared with Champa's ugly eating, Vado's eating is much more elegant. Every move was noble and elegant, which caused Su Ming to take a second look at the past. Su Ming, in the past year, your strength has become stronger and stronger. Vados noticed that Su Ming was looking at him, so he couldn't help but look up at him, and said, in my opinion, how about becoming a candidate for the Gods of Destruction of the 6th universe? This idea, Vados had already had before. Su Ming's talent is not only to be a Supreme Kai, but also to be a Gods of Destruction of the universe, and he has the qualifications to be one. Therefore, after watching Su Ming's growth for another year, Vados couldn't help but suggest such a sentence. Okay. Hearing Vado's proposal, both Su Ming himself and Champa, who was eating and drinking, stopped their chopsticks and looked at her in a daze. In my opinion, your talent is enough to become a candidate for Gods of Destruction in the 6th universe. This is the path you should take. Vados smiled slightly. This kid becomes the Gods of Destruction candidate of the 6th universe, and I have no objection. After Champa stated his position, he continued to eat and drink wildly. Su Ming frowned slightly, pondered for a while, finally shook his head, and said, Vados, I think the status of trainee Supreme Kai is very suitable for me. Destruction Shendu is a powerful existence, and most of Supreme Kai are weak existences. And once he becomes the Gods of Destruction of the 6th universe, then it is equivalent to the weakness he has as the Supreme Kai of the 6th universe. Conversely, he is the Supreme Kai of the 6th universe, and as for the weakness, it becomes the Gods of Destruction of the 6th universe. The strength of gods of destruction is the top combat power of a universe. How many people can kill it? That's why Su Ming refused to be the 6th universe's gods of destruction candidate. Rather than having a weak Supreme Kai be his weakness, he would rather have a strong gods of destruction be his weakness. Really, that's fine. Vados smiled and said nothing more. She just mentioned it casually today. If Su Ming is willing, then everyone will be happy. If you don't want to, that's okay. Anyway, this little guy is from the 6th universe. More than an hour passed quickly. This meal is almost enough. When Su Ming was about to get up and leave, Champa stopped him suddenly. Su Ming, you will go with me and Vados to the 7th universe in a while. Hearing this, Su Ming couldn't help blinking. To be honest, he has been thinking about how to sneak into the 7th universe from the 6th universe. Now, Champa even took the initiative to take him there. How can this not make Su Ming feel drowsy, and feel as happy as a pillow falling from the sky? What are you doing in the 7th universe? Su Ming pretended not to understand anything, and asked a question. He, Champa sneered, and said, didn't I ask you to save some ingredients? Today, I need your food, to fight for my 6th universe. Well, this is trying to pretend to be B. Su Ming burst into a dumbfounded laugh. Vados, let's go. After eating and drinking enough, Champa wanted to pretend to be a big B in front of Beerus, and immediately waved his hand to signal Vados to move. Starting from the Gods of Destruction world of the 6th universe, it took about a week to arrive at the Gods of Destruction world of the 7th universe. Now, 7th universe Gods of Destruction realm. Vados looked at Su Ming and said, I remember that you controlled the instant transmission. Now, can you remember the location of the 7th universe? No problem. Su Ming nodded, smiled slightly, and said, this time when I return to the 6th universe, let me lead you. Or the next time you come to the 7th universe, you can also lead me. Very good. Champa rubbed his hands excitedly on the side, and then kicked the door in front of him, and then several people quickly flew towards the center of Gods of Destruction in the 7th universe. Now, 7th universe Gods of Destruction realm, in the palace where Gods of Destruction lives. Angel Whis, who was drinking tea, suddenly had his eyelids twitch, and then, as if he had noticed something, he slowly stood up from his seat, with a little surprise on his face. Call out. Next second, there were several sounds of breaking through the air, and then 3 figures appeared in his sight. Sister Vados, Master Champa. Whis looked at the 3 people who suddenly appeared in his line of sight, and was taken aback for a moment. Long time no see, Whis. Champa immediately waved his hand to say hello, then looked left and right, and then a sneer appeared on his face, and he said, this guy, Beerus, is he sleeping again? Yes. Whis nodded, and then greeted several people to sit down. During this time, his eyes were fixed on Su Ming, who was wearing clothes similar to Supreme Kai, and he was a little puzzled. 6th universe's Supreme Kai, has someone changed? This is Su Ming, my trainee Supreme Kai from the 6th universe. Vados introduced. Su Ming, this is the angel of the 7th universe, Whis. Hello, Mr. Whis. Su Ming nodded and smiled at him. Hello. Whis also returned a smile, and then looked at Vados with some doubts in his eyes, wondering how they came to the 7th universe. I'm here this time to share the food of my 6th universe with Beerus. Where's Beerus? Hurry up and get up. While talking, Champa's voice raised a lot. Food. Whis was slightly taken aback. Then it came to mind that hundreds of years ago, Champa also came with the food of the 6th universe, the taste. Whis' expression gradually became a little uncomfortable. I can't say it's delicious, I can only say, it's very unpalatable. Master Champa, Master Beerus has not been asleep for long, so this time, he probably won't be able to enjoy the delicious food you brought. Whis thought about it and rejected Champa. He didn't want to be poisoned by the dark dishes that Champa brought out. Sleeping? No way. Wake him up quickly. Champa immediately became displeased. Today he is determined to pretend to be B, and Beerus is not here, so what's the point of him pretending to be B? As he spoke, Champa got up from the chair and headed towards Beerus's bedroom. At this moment, Whis suddenly called Champa, coughed twice, and said, well, Master Champa, if you want to eat delicious food, you can stay here. After Master Beerus wakes up, I will let him taste it of. How can I pretend to be B? Champa smiled coldly in his heart, completely ignored Whis' verbal obstruction, and strode towards Beerus's bedroom, and the footsteps became much louder, and his voice even increased to the point of yelling, "Beerus! Beerus, are you still asleep? My uncle brought you delicious food, hurry up and enjoy it." "See here." Whis slapped himself on the face, revealing a helpless smile. Boom. 3 seconds later, a terrifying aura suddenly exploded from Beerus's bedroom. Su Ming was shocked. It was just the aura that Beerus casually showed so amazing. If it was really in a state of anger, how terrifying would this aura be when the firepower was fully fired? He. Champa, who bears the brunt of Beerus's breath, sneered again. As long as Beerus is upset, he is very happy, and immediately continued to yell, "Since you are up, get out, let me show you today what is the most delicious food in the universe." Boom. As Champa's roar fell, the next second, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Champa. One is fat and the other is thin, the two are very close, their eyes are facing each other, and between the eyes, it seems that there are electric sparks flickering in a chi-chi. "Champa, you're pretty darn good." Beerus, in pajamas, stared at Champa through gritted teeth. If eyes could kill, Champa would have been hacked to pieces by Beerus at this moment. "Beerus, you really can't see others treating you well," Champa said meanly. "You have to know, the delicious food I brought this time, but even I can't bear to eat it myself. The first thing I think of is you, my twin brother." "Ah," Beerus sneered when he heard this. Obviously, for Beerus, Champa's so casually courting her is definitely rape or theft. Besides, this so-called food is definitely the same dark food as before. "I'm not at all interested in your 6th universe food. You'd better." Sniff, sniff. As Beerus was talking, a sudden burst of fragrance came from his nose, which made him stop talking, and then took 2 sharp breaths of air, and then a look of astonishment appeared on his face. "What kind of smell is this? It smells so good. Gulu." Beerus swallowed heavily while exclaiming, "Little boy, this still can't handle you." Seeing that everything was going according to his plan, Champa was immediately happy. At this time, he coughed twice, and said, "Beerus, just wait and see. The scent you smelled just now is exactly the scent of the food from my 6th universe." "Nani? Impossible. Absolutely impossible." Beerus waved his hand immediately and directly refuted Champa's words. "6th. Can the food in universe have this fragrance? He doesn't believe it. Master Beerus." At this time, the voice of Whis came. This time Master Champa brought something that can indeed be called gourmet food. Whether it is the color or aroma of the dishes, it is in sharp contrast with the dark dishes last time. "Nani?" Beerus would naturally believe what Whis said, but even so, he was still shocked. This guy, Champa, actually brought him delicious food. No, this guy is here to show off. Beerus squinted, and found that Champa had a smirk on his face the whole time, which made him wonder, this fat man came to pretend to be X in his 7th universe. However, this bee today was indeed installed by Champa. Beerus quickly walked towards the dining table, seeing a dozen dishes of delicacies on the table, his eyes lit up in vain at this moment. After taking 2 strong sniffs, he sat down directly, and just as he was about to start grabbing. But Champa stopped him, and threw him a pair of chopsticks, and said flatly, "You bumpkin who has never seen the world, you can't use your dirty hands to desecrate delicious food. These are chopsticks, used to hold delicious food." While talking, Champa made a demonstration. This made Beerus and Whis look at each other involuntarily, and then imitated, and put a piece of braised pork into their mouths. And when Beerus and Whis started chewing, their eyes widened instantly, and their faces were instantly filled with shock. He. Shocked. Thin bamboo pole. This is the delicacy of my 6th universe. Seeing Beerus's expression, Champa burst out laughing triumphantly. At this moment, Beerus didn't have time to talk to Champa. He kept putting the vegetables into his mouth, inhaling and exhaling from time to time, as well as words of praise. On the other side, Champa's face was full of embarrassment from beginning to end. It was delicious. "Whis, don't grab me. You ate the last piece of meat, what should I eat?" Master Beerus, there is still a plate over there. Don't worry, hiss, ha, by the way, why do I feel like my scalp is numb? Whis and Beerus kept interacting, and Champa laughed while watching. It was this feeling that made him feel better. Soon, Champa also joined in the binge-eating action. In just half an hour, more than a dozen delicacies, including soup and juice, all fell into the stomachs of Champa, Beerus and Whis. Belch. The three of them leaned on the chairs in unison and hiccuped. Looking at their endless expressions, it is not difficult to see that they still have more to say at this moment. In Champa's words, he can eat another table of delicious food. Beerus, how's it going? Is the food in my sixth universe the most delicious food in the whole universe? After eating and drinking, Champa naturally recalled his purpose of coming to the seventh universe today, and immediately began to speak proudly. He. Facing Champa's bragging, Beerus smiled half-heartedly. To be honest, he did admit that the food eaten today was very delicious. But it was Champa who brought out the food, and Beerus naturally didn't want to admit it. It doesn't matter if you don't admit it, I have seen your eating just now. He. Beerus, the body is always the most honest expression. Champa slapped the table, slowly stood up from the chair, stared at Beerus opposite, and sneered, I don't know, you who always think that the food in your universe is the most delicious, can you let me, a guest, enjoy it too? Quote. This. Hearing what Champa said, Beerus lost all confidence in an instant. He turned his head to look at Whis in embarrassment, with a little questioning in his eyes. It seems to be asking Whis, does our seventh universe have any good food? Whis smiled wryly and shook his head. The food on this table today let him know what is really delicious. Although there are some lesser-known delicacies in the seventh universe, compared to the delicacies on this table today, they are really unpalatable to the extreme. Did he just let him go back to the sixth universe proudly today? Beerus gritted his teeth unwillingly, glanced at Su Ming from the corner of his eye, his eyeballs rolled around slightly, changed the subject, and said, when did the Supreme Kai of the sixth universe change? What's the matter with you? Champa reached out and pinched his nose, and said lightly, Beerus, don't change the subject. It's best to admit that the food in your seventh universe is not as good as the food in my sixth universe. Boy, are you the Supreme Kai of the sixth universe? It's really hard for you to share your life with such a guy with no qualities. Beerus ignored Champa, stared at Su Ming and smiled, I heard from Whis that the food on this table just now was all made by you. If it were me, I would definitely mention your culinary skills to others, and call you the pride of my universe, instead of opening my mouth like someone and giving all the credit to myself. Nani, Beerus, what are you talking about? Boom. As Beerus's voice fell, Champa frowned instantly, slammed the table, stared angrily at the innocent Beerus, and roared, is there anyone like you who sows dissension? Who? Beerus looked blankly, looked left and right, and said in surprise, Champa, what are you talking about? I'm sowing discord, please, am I telling the truth? If this little guy is a member of my seventh universe, I will definitely withdraw it and regard it as a representative of my seventh universe's gourmet food. And you keep your mouth shut, claiming to be the gourmet food of the sixth universe, and don't mention this little brother at all. You are really an unqualified gods of destruction. Perfect. Simply perfect. At this moment, Beerus completely interprets a green tea in a wonderful and beautiful way. Champa is a hate at the moment, and the key point is that he has to explain it. After all, these delicious delicacies are indeed made by Su Ming. Without Su Ming, none of these delicacies would be possible. Su Ming, don't listen to this skinny bamboo pole talking nonsense. I know, without you, naturally there would be no delicious food on this table. Champa hurriedly explained to Su Ming, in my eyes, the food representative of the sixth universe is you, Su Ming. Su Ming was amused while listening to it, but he didn't have the slightest mood swing in his heart. In his eyes, the improvement of his level and the growth of his strength are what he cares about and values the most. He doesn't care whether the name of the food is with him or not. Master Champa, Su Ming is not such a small-minded person. At this time, Vados stood up to smooth things over, and whispered, you, don't be surrounded by Mr. Beerus. Don't forget the other purpose of your visit this time. Right. After Vados' call, Champa suddenly regained his composure, took a deep breath, and his expression gradually became more natural. His coming to the seventh universe this time is not just to show Su Ming's Chinese food in front of Beerus, the second purpose is to show Su Ming's strength. Yes, as early as a year ago, he was half-strength, and although he was defeated by Su Ming with contempt, he was pinned down to the ground and beaten and rubbed violently. 1 year later, Su Ming's strength is not a bit stronger than before. So, the second purpose of Champa's arrival in the 7th universe is self-evident. Trick Beerus into a fight with Su Ming, let this skinny bamboo pole taste what it's like to be beaten up by a rising star. Wanting to understand the purpose of his visit today, Champa immediately looked at Beerus, snorted coldly and said, "Beerus, since you admit to eating Su Ming's food, how about agreeing to his request?" "What request?" Seeing that Champa had calmed down, Beerus couldn't help but frown. He, Champa said with a fake smile, "Fight this kid." "A fight?" Beerus froze for a moment, then looked at Su Ming twice more, then couldn't help but shook his head and laughed, and said, "Champa, stop joking." Although he didn't know how strong Su Ming was, even if he was extremely powerful, how could he be as powerful as gods of destruction? Not to mention, even an ordinary gods of destruction level combat power master, it is impossible for him to be his opponent. So, this Champa is not just joking. It's not easy for Beerus to eat someone else's food and then beat someone up violently. "Lord Beerus, that's right." Su Ming stood up, saluted with fists in his hands, and said, "I said I was going to fight with you, but actually I want you to guide me." Of course, it's perfectly normal to have any injuries during the guidance. As soon as Su Ming said this, Beerus frowned immediately, and couldn't help giving him a weird look, and Champa on the other side, always felt that there seemed to be something deceitful. But think about it carefully, what is he afraid of, Beerus? With his strength, even with a little bit of strength, wouldn't he be able to easily crush a kid like Su Ming? "It's you who said that. If you get hurt during the guidance, don't blame me." Beerus repeated a point, then gave Whis a look. The latter understood, holding the angel staff and tapping lightly on the ground. Next second, the scene where the few people were located changed, and they came to the land outside the palace. "Please." Seeing this, Su Ming smiled and nodded, then soared into the sky, standing at an altitude of 10,000 meters in an instant. "The last time I coached Su Ming, his strength was only maintained at half strength. If someone can't beat Su Ming, it's not impossible to improve some strength." Just when Beerus was about to fly into the sky, Champa said this lightly. Hearing this, Beerus sneered. Even if the strength of this guy is 10, he is still not his opponent. Half of his strength guides Su Ming, so this time he will use half of his strength to guide Su Ming. "Call out." Beerus kicked his feet, and his whole body rose into the sky like a cannonball, and he appeared at an altitude of 10,000 meters in an instant. "There's a good show to watch." Champa asked Vados to take out a chair and lay down on it with a smirk. When Whis on the side heard this, he couldn't help showing a little surprise on his face. What does Lord Champa mean by this? Could it be? With Master Beerus's strength, can he still be crushed by a little guy like Su Ming? Thinking of this, he looked at Vados on the side, and saw that the elder sister had a look of expectation on her face, as if she didn't think that Su Ming would end badly in this mentoring battle, which made him suddenly stunned. "Boy, I admit that your culinary skills are so strong. But, high cooking skills do not mean high strength. This time, I will be very gentle in the guidance. You should think about finding a chance to pass out." 10,000 meters above the sky. Beerus looked at Su Ming with a serious face, couldn't help but shook his head and said. He believes that Su Ming was coerced by Champa, in order to blame himself after Su Ming was accidentally injured by him. "Master Beerus, please be careful. When Master Champa taught me for the first time, I suffered a lot." Su Ming clasped his fists. He. If that's the case, come on." Beerus didn't believe it, and stretched out a finger, hooked it towards Su Ming, signaling him to attack first. Seeing that Beerus didn't take him too seriously, Su Ming shook his head and smiled, and then his expression suddenly became serious. "Drink." Boom. Following Su Ming's burst of shouting, the next second, he rushed in front of Beerus. The speed is so fast. Su Ming's speed really shocked Beerus. Followed. Su Ming's fist came out with a violent whistling sound. Boom. Boom. Beerus raised his hand and pointed out, just one finger easily resisted Su Ming's fist. Boom. 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 Su Ming withdrew his fist, and then punched violently again, punching out like a violent storm. Facing Su Ming's fast fist attack, Beerus calmly blocked it with one finger, and he didn't seem to be struggling at all. However, he was slightly surprised at Su Ming's strength. After all, this is just a trainee Supreme Kai. It is really not easy and not easy to be so powerful. At least, in the human beings he knows. No, even among some non-war gods, Su Ming's strength is absolutely outstanding. Boom. While distracted, Beerus passively countered Su Ming's attack, seemingly with ease. After Su Ming threw out another heavy punch, the two of them retreated about tens of meters each. Hoo-hoo. Su Ming seemed to be panting, but he was actually adjusting his breathing rate. For an existence at his level, in battle, he must perfectly control his breathing rhythm during battle, which has some unexpected small help to his actual combat ability. Strange, how come I haven't received the system prompt for gaining experience points after punching so many hundreds of times? Su Ming came back to his senses suddenly, checked his experience value, but found that it was still a little bit, not increased at all, which made him frown slightly. Boom. Before he had time to think about it, Su Ming had already seen Beerus take the initiative to attack. Immediately, he suddenly exploded the energy in his whole body, and some silvery white flames rose up all over his body. At this moment, his short, refined hair stood upright, his handsome face was extremely stern, and he rushed forward to welcome Beerus. Boom, boom, the two got close and wrestled together like fists to the flesh. This Beerus guy doesn't seem to realize the seriousness yet. Now, below, Champa took out a glass of juice and took a sip. With a smirk on his face, he muttered, "Just like me before, I also hope that this guy can be beaten up hard." Okay, Whis heard Champa's muttering from the side, and his face showed a little surprise. He looked up at the two wrestling together at an altitude of 10,000 meters, and his eyes gradually narrowed. He could see that Su Ming had no so-called disadvantages from the beginning of the scuffle. Even in the split second between individual fights, Su Ming seemed to have perfectly controlled the rhythm of the battle in his own hands. He wanted to hit fast, and Beerus would punch faster. He wants to slow down the collision, and Beerus will subconsciously slow down the speed of punching. Master Beerus, this is being led by the nose. Whis thought something bad in his heart. At the same time, he couldn't help but become curious about Su Ming, the trainee Supreme Kai of the 6th universe. With such strength, how could he become a trainee Supreme Kai? Logically speaking, such a talented rising star is more than enough to be a Gods of Destruction candidate. Under the guidance of Sister Vados, within a few million years, the 6th universe will give birth to a Gods of Destruction level powerful existence. I don't understand. Whis shook his head. He is the angel of the 7th universe, so naturally it is not easy to ask about such things. Boom, boom, boom. Now, on the sky, the confrontation between Su Ming and Beerus gradually entered a faster rhythm. The fists of the two people only saw shadows, but not real fists, and they just fought and collided for hundreds of punches. The two of them retracted their punches at the same time, and then punched out again suddenly. Boom, boom. The fierce collision made the space in the Gods of Destruction world tremble, and only a slight, buzzing, sound could be heard. Next second, the two retreated hundreds of meters at the same time, and after gliding for tens of meters, they both stabilized their bodies. Good guy. This kid's strength is not at all inferior to half of my half-strength. Beerus stared at Su Ming, who was hundreds of meters away, with a look of amazement on his face. You know, at his level, even if he is half of half-strength, it is definitely not something that ordinary existence can compete with. Just like comparing Son Goku in the original Dragon Ball era, Beerus can stab Son Goku to death with just one finger. And what about Su Ming's strength? Now it has 20 trillion, converted into a unit of 100 million, that is a terrifying 20 trillion. How much is the highest combat power of Majin Buu? At most, it is the super soldier Vegito born from the combination of Son Goku and Vegeta. Its strength is terrifying enough, right? But according to guessing from the big data on the internet, Vegito's combat power at that time was at most a few megabytes or 10 megabytes. Doesn't this explain how terrifying Su Ming's 20 trillion combat power is today? Boom. Su Ming wouldn't be too distracted in a battle of this level. After stabilizing his body, he just found his breathing rhythm for a few seconds and then rushed towards Beerus again. But, this time, Su Ming was stopped halfway. Because, Beerus was one step ahead of him. In other words, although Beerus started a step slower than Su Ming, his speed was much faster than Su Ming, and he was waiting for him halfway ahead of time. Boom. This time, Beerus raised his hand and punched it out. The surface of the fist carried a faint purple energy aura. This was not the force of destruction wrapped around his hand, but just an ordinary manifestation of energy. To deal with a rising star at Su Ming's level, there is no need for Beerus to go to war and use the power of destruction. It's over. Beerus was particularly confident in his punch, and believed that Su Ming would never escape his punch. But, next second, Su Ming just turned sideways, easily dodged his punch, and violently blasted out a punch with silver-white energy flames, but the smile on his face stopped abruptly. This time's evasion, and that silvery white radiance, that is, freedom. It wasn't just that Beerus's pupils constricted for a while. Now, below, Whis, who also had a faint smile on his face, changed in vain to one of astonishment. Comfortable, extreme intention. Whis took a deep breath, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Whis, how about it? Let me tell you, this kid Su Ming's strength is not simple. Champa chuckled, although it's not a perfect Ultra Instinct. Even the Ultra Instinct Zhao is very scary. Whis nodded in approval. You must know that the difficulty of Ultra Instinct is a realm that cannot be reached in a lifetime for ordinary gods. Even, for some gods of destruction, not to mention the perfect Ultra Instinct, even the Ultra Instinct mega state that Su Ming has entered at this moment is enough for too many gods of destruction to reach it in a lifetime. It can be seen that what super talent is needed to control the Ultra Instinct. You took control of the Ultra Instinct. Now. At an altitude of 10,000 meters. Beerus frowned and looked at Su Ming, surprised. It's not a perfect Ultra Instinct either. This is a prototype state. Su Ming responded with a smile and did not hide it. Ultra Instinct Mega's form. Beerus also understands some Ultra Instincts. His eyes narrowed slightly, and then a little funny smile appeared on his face, and he said, not bad. It's a bit interesting, it seems that your strength is far away. So easy. Come on, let me see your true strength. Please. Su Ming let out a loud cry, the aura on his body exploded again, and the energy aura around him soared again, heading straight into the sky. At this moment, he looked like a god of war. Call out, call out. Su Ming and Beerus set off at the same time, and they collided instantly. Boom, boom, the fists of the two collided, and at least hundreds of punches were thrown out in an instant. Drink. Ah da da da. Su Ming was extremely excited. At this moment, he didn't hide his strength at all. It could be said that he was fighting Beerus with full firepower. This guy. Every time Beerus received a punch from Su Ming, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Because, every time this guy Su Ming punches, his strength is stronger than before. What is this? This astonishing growth ability and combat talent are indeed a bit scary. Beerus stared. He had never seen a small human, or Supreme Kai could reach the level of Su Ming. Even if Su Ming was said to be a mighty universe's gods of destruction candidate, Beerus would believe it unconditionally. Enjoy the battle, experience value +5. Enjoy the battle, experience value +10. Enjoy the battle, experience value +10. ... Unlike Beerus, the more he fights, the more he is surprised by Su Ming's strength, growth, and fighting talent. Su Ming, at this moment, is completely immersed in the excitement of his experience soaring. Therefore, his fighting passion at the moment can be said to be getting higher and higher. Drink. Facing Su Ming, who was getting more and more passionate about fighting, Beerus, who was half strength and half strength, gradually became overwhelmed. Don't think that the experience points obtained by Su Ming at this level are of no use at all. As his experience points increased by about 10%, his own combat power also increased a lot. As he is now, the experience value has reached 50% of the level 8 to 9, and his combat power has increased from 20 trillion to 25 trillion. Don't think that the increase in combat power of 5 trillion is considered small. You know, how long has it been since Su Ming and Beerus fought? Do you have 10 minutes? No, at most, it will take 2 or 3 minutes. And in just 2 or 3 minutes, Su Ming's strength skyrocketed by as much as 5 trillion. In this conversion, how terrifying is his growth rate? Not to mention the guys like Son Goku and Vegeta, even against Broly's growth and Frieza's growth, they definitely have the power to fight, and even surpass them. Boom. At this moment, Su Ming slammed a fist on Beerus's chest, and the terrifying force directly overwhelmed him and slammed into the ground. Moment. Beerus has sunk deep into the depths of the gods of destruction world, and has not stopped piercing through the ground. Seeing this, the eyelids of Champa, Whis, and Vados on the ground could not help but twitch. Good guy. This power is really terrifying enough. Nice job, Su Ming, just teach me the Beerus. After Champa regained his composure, he waved his arms excitedly and shouted at Su Ming in the sky. The strength of this little guy can grow infinitely in battle. Whis took a deep breath, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. He had never seen such a perverted existence before. Su Ming was indeed the first person he saw. There used to be such a guy who was so perverted. Vado's eyes flickered, and he said, now, that one has become the strongest gods of destruction among the 18 universes. Vados, that guy you're talking about is a lawbreaker. Champa on the side blurted out. That's right. Vados nodded. Master Lawbreaker is the first existence to break through the shackles of gods of destruction. His strength has already reached angel-level combat power millions of years ago. I can't compare. The corners of Champa's mouth twitched twice, and the man's tall body and those pair of eyes that could not help but frightened appeared in his mind. He immediately shrank his neck, shook his head and said, this kid Su Ming has a way to break the law. Are you that perverted? Whis, what do you think? Vados looked at Whis, seeing the same shocked look on his face. He couldn't help asking him what he thought. My opinion is that Su Ming's talent for growing up and fighting is even worse than Master Lawbreaker. Whis answered Vados in a deep voice. Boom. At the moment when Whis' voice fell, there were bursts of deafening explosions in the field. Swish, swish, swish. Several people suddenly turned their heads to look. When they saw Su Ming, whose upper body was naked, grabbing Beerus, whose upper body was naked, their pupils constricted for a while, and expressions of incomparable shock once again appeared on their faces. What amazing scene did they see? The gods of destruction Beerus of the 7th universe was actually carried by a trainee Supreme Kai like a chicken. Moreover, it is not difficult to see from the current state of Beerus, what kind of beating he suffered from Su Ming. Fighter than gods of destruction, Su Ming is a little too perverted. Champa couldn't help gasping for air. Thinking about it now, when he was beaten violently at the time, seeing it now, it was really a normal thing. After all, being as strong as Beerus also didn't have any advantage in Su Ming's hands, and he was beaten all the way without any suspense. Boom, boom, now, field, holding Beerus, Su Ming raised his hand and threw it towards the sky. Immediately, he raised his hand slowly, and pointed at Beerus in the sky with one finger. Call out. Moment. A terrifying purple energy finger cannon shot out from his fingertips. Boom. Rumble. This purple energy finger bombarded Beerus's body, causing him to let out a scream of pain. Nani. Seeing this scene, Champa was shocked for the second time, and his whole scalp felt numb. What is that? Did he read it right? The power of destruction. Whis was also stunned, and exclaimed, as a trainee Supreme Kai, Su Ming, how did he control the power of gods of destruction? Strangeness. Vados is also a little strange, his face is full of astonishment. There is a year difference between her and Su Ming. When she was instructing him, she had never seen him use the power of destruction, but now she suddenly showed it. Is it the power of comprehension? Wait, his destructive power seems to be only superficial. He doesn't really have the ability to destruct. He has a name but no substance. Whis stared, noticed something, and exclaimed again. Now, on the sky, there was a trace of purple energy flames on Beerus's back, which was the residual energy from the finger cannon that Su Ming released just now. The burning sensation made him gasp for a while, and his complexion became particularly ugly. Only he understood that although Su Ming's destructive power seemed to have no substantial destructive effect, but, in terms of power, it is not inferior to him when he uses destructive energy. This kid, it's interesting. It seems that Champa also suffered from him before. Beerus was thinking, and the burning sensation on his back hit again, making the corners of his mouth twitch twice. But it was this pain that completely ignited Beerus's fighting passion. Boom! Beerus burst into breath. This time he raised his strength to half of his own strength. Don't underestimate his half strength, at least on the bright side, it definitely exceeds the value of the combat power that Su Ming currently possesses on the bright side. Seriously. Su Ming saw the purple energy flame rising from Beerus's body, and a smile appeared on his face. Su Ming was really happy to make Beerus completely serious. Because, this proud gods of destruction recognized him in terms of strength. Come on, Lord Beerus. Boom. Su Ming also exploded all the energy in his body, in order to respond to Beerus's excitement and seriousness at the moment. Call out, call out. The two set off at the same time and collided with each other in an instant. Boom, boom. The two fists started a confrontational bombing mode. No one was faster. It could be said that they were thrown out at the same time, retracted at the same time, and then fired at the same time. In just 0.1 second, the two exchanged at least 100 punches. And as the two confronted each other, the excitement on their faces could be seen. Beerus hadn't had such fun fighting for a long time. As for Su Ming, the system's notification sound kept coming from his mind, and the soaring speed of his experience points made him almost groan with joy. Finally, after another punch and bang, they separated. There was also a system prompt in Su Ming's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host, successfully upgraded to level 9. Get an upgrade. 200 celestial beans, increase combat power to 50 megabytes, flash time plus 0.1 seconds. Moment. As the system's notification tone fell, Su Ming felt a burst of warmth all over his body. Clenching his fist tightly, feeling the endless surging energy in his body, when Su Ming looked at Beerus again, that look was only greedy. Yes, fighting with Beerus is a lot of fun, not to mention, the speed of upgrading is much faster than the speed of fighting with Champa. It seems that the 7th universe needs to come often. Su Ming thought inwardly, dodged, and appeared in front of Beerus again in an instant. Boom! A simple straight punch blasted out. This one. Beerus frowned, but soon, he couldn't calm down. Because, inexplicably, he seemed to lose 0.3 seconds of time. And the moment he came back to his senses, Su Ming's fist had already hit his face. Boom! This straight punch, which couldn't be simpler, directly sent Beerus's nosebleed flying across the sky. Immediately afterwards, the rhythm of the battle was once again controlled by Su Ming. His current combat power has reached as much as 50 trillion, which is doubled compared to before. Beerus, who is half strength, is powerful, but in front of Su Ming, who has many unique skills, he looks extremely weak. Below, Champa, Whis, Vados are simply dumbfounded. Su Ming, how could he keep breaking through his limits in battle? And there are endless methods, and it is impossible to see through his attack trajectory. Did I get dazzled just now? Why, I feel that for a split second, time seems to stand still. Champa was puzzled. Lord Champa, your feelings are not wrong. Holding the angel staff, Vados narrowed his eyes slightly, and said, to Master Beerus just now, time did seem to stand still at that moment. That's because Su Ming used his ability to the time jump has advanced by a few tenths of a second. Nani? Vados' explanation made Champa's eyes widen, disbelief all over his face. What kind of ability is this? Champa was stunned. With this ability, wouldn't it be possible to use it in any battle and let the releaser do whatever he wanted? It's too perverted. Master Champa, this ability is called Flash Time. Vados said indifferently. Any ability has its own disadvantages and weaknesses. Flash Time is no exception. As long as your speed exceeds the release of Flash Time, you can completely ignore it. In the same way, your strength exceeds the strength of too many releasers, and you can also ignore it. Like this, Champa suddenly realized, and looked up to the sky again. Now, Su Ming punched Beerus, the latter looked weak and powerless, and could only passively bear the former's punch. This Su Ming's strength is a little scary. Champa winced, even though it was the guy he hated the most getting beaten up. But subconsciously, the scene where he was pinned down and rubbed on the ground by Su Ming a year ago, and he had no strength to fight back appeared in his mind. With Su Ming's strength, he should be a Gods of Destruction candidate. Why, he became a trainee Supreme Kai. Whis was surprised. For such a talented little guy, being a Supreme Kai is really quite violent. You think I don't want this little guy to be an alternate for Gods of Destruction in the 6th universe? Vados shook his head with a wry smile, and said, he rejected me more than once or twice. But what I'm curious about now is how he controls the power of destruction. This is a big question to think about. Su Ming, under what conditions did he realize the power of destruction? Boom, rumble, on the sky, waves of deafening explosions continued to ring out. Boom, the battle between Su Ming and Beerus has also entered a fierce stage. In other words, the time for Su Ming to unilaterally beat Beerus is coming to an end. Finally, under Su Ming's fierce punch, Beerus fell straight to the ground from a height of 10,000 meters. It's over. Gods of Destruction, as powerful as Beerus, was also defeated by Su Ming. Beerus isn't firing on all cylinders, though. But just now, he had already used half of his own strength, but facing Su Ming, he still had no power to fight back at all. This kid is a super genius with the ability to challenge people across the strength class. Beerus flew out of the big pit in a panic, staring at Su Ming who was slowly descending from the sky. There was no trace of anger in his eyes. It's more of a fighting spirit. Yes, Beerus has never been a villain, and he never hides his appreciation for a person. Even though he was beaten so violently on the back in front of the guy he hated the most today, he didn't feel angry at all. Because he found something more interesting. That is to fight this kid Su Ming. Master Beerus, I accept it. The two sides met again, and Su Ming cupped his fists and bowed respectfully to Beerus. The strength of this Gods of Destruction is indeed formidable and terrifying. In the battle, he was given a lot of experience points. He had only been promoted to level 9 not long ago, and now his experience value is 70% of the experience value before reaching level 10. Su Ming probably glanced at it. After returning to the 6th universe Gods of Destruction world, and taking the time to fight with Champa, he should be able to rise to level 10 and open the second upgrade package. To this, Su Ming is still looking forward to what good things will be in the upgrade package given by the 10th level system. In fact, he already recognized Su Ming in his heart, but as the one who lost, Beerus still felt a little uncomfortable on his face, so he just snorted coldly and flew towards his palace with his upper body bare. In response, Su Ming shook his head and smiled, not feeling anything about Beerus's attitude. Good boy, this time the performance is simply too beautiful. When Su Ming returned to the side of Vados and the others, Champa immediately gave a thumbs up in admiration. Hey, lucky. Su Ming smiled and scratched the back of his head, showing very modesty. By the way, how did you comprehend your destructive power? Champa rolled his eyes and asked. I don't know, Master Champa believes it. Su Ming couldn't find a better explanation for a while, so he turned the question back to Champa. Champa was directly blocked by Su Ming's rhetorical question. What he said was obviously that he had his own secret, so it was not easy to say much. It would be a little embarrassing for him to ask further. He just needs to know that this kid Su Ming is an out-and-out pervert. Vados, let's go back. After pretending to be a wave of B, and seeing Beerus being beaten up by Su Ming, Champa was satisfied, and immediately waved his hand, ready to set off to return to the 6th universe. Master Champa, have you forgotten? Su Ming controls instant transmission. Vados reminded softly. Then, Su Ming, let's go back. Champa said with a smile. The next time I have a chance, I will come to the 7th universe and see if Beerus has improved in strength after losing. Ha, call out. As Champa laughed, the figures of several people disappeared in the Gods of Destruction world of the 7th universe in an instant. After Su Ming and the others left, Beerus came back after he had changed his clothes again. He stood beside Whis, with a strange light in his eyes, and said, this kid named Su Ming should be able to reach the level of a phenomenal expert among human beings. How much power did Master Beerus use just now? Whis glanced at Beerus and asked in a low voice. Close to 10%. Beerus smiled awkwardly. In the end, his strength had actually been secretly raised to close to 10% of his own strength. But, in Su Ming's hands, he still couldn't gain the upper hand, and even maintained the situation of being hanged from beginning to end. To be honest, Beerus did feel a little humiliated. He is indeed a scary little guy. It seems that the future Su Ming will become the strongest Supreme Kai in all universes. Whis nodded in admiration. An hour later, 7th universe. The Milky Way, above Earth. With his hands behind his back, Su Ming looked down indifferently on a busy city below. An hour earlier, he had returned to the 6th universe with Champa and Vados. After staying in the 6th universe gods of destruction for a while, he came to the 7th universe again, and even arrived on the western capital of the earth. This is the western capital in my childhood memories. Su Ming looked at the city below, shook his head and chuckled. But, if you really want to say the beginning of the Dragon Ball dream, it must be Baozi Mountain. Currently, it is the year 761 of IG. This time period seems to be the time period when Raditz came to Earth. In other words, the Dragon Ball plot is only the beginning of Dragon Balls. Su Ming stretched out his hand to support his chin, and a strange light flashed in his eyes. During this period of time, Vegeta has not yet come to the Earth, and Son Goku and others are as weak as ants. Not much fun. Su Ming shook his head. Even if he came into contact with Son Goku and others at this time, they still couldn't give him enough fighting passion. Even if he fights against Son Goku and others, his terrifying strength that can almost make people despair will definitely leave a big shadow for Son Goku and others. No need. Su Ming shook his head and smiled, pointed his index finger between his eyebrows, and disappeared directly above the sky of Exodus in the next second. ... Call out. Now, on a planet called Wampa extremely far away from Earth. Su Ming's figure appeared high above the sky. This is the planet where Broly was exiled, Wampa planet. Su Ming lowered his head and looked around. This planet was extremely desolate. Occasionally, he saw a few ferocious beasts running and chasing on the ground, but there was no one there. Call out. Su Ming's index finger and middle finger were placed between the eyebrows and began to sense. Not long after, his figure disappeared into the sky again. When he reappeared, he was already standing at the gate of a cave. Now, there was a palpitating and uneasy atmosphere in the cave, as if there was a vicious beast inside. Su Ming looked very indifferent, and yelled into the dark cave, "Broly! Call out!" Following Su Ming's yelling, not long after, a tall young man wearing animal skins rushed out of the dark cave. Boom! The young man arrived in front of Su Ming in an instant, raised his hand and punched out suddenly. With Su Ming's strength, how could he be hit by such a soft punch, and he raised his hand and punched out, directly blasting him out. Call out. Su Ming took a step forward, stepped on the chest of the young man who flew upside down, and flew into the dark cave. Boom! Roar! There was a dull crashing sound, followed by a deep cry like a beast's roar, which came from the mouth of the young man under Su Ming's feet. Broly, I mean nothing malicious. Su Ming stopped his feet, and then some energy burst out from his body, and the arrogance spread, lighting up the dark cave. He looked down, and a handsome young man was staring at him angrily. He tore it apart. Interesting, it's the new version of Broly. Su Ming saw clearly the appearance of Broly in this world, which was exactly the appearance of Broly in a theater version he had seen in his previous life. At the same time, this also means that this guy is a new version of Broly, not the crazy Broly who is brainless in the old version. Let me introduce myself. My name is Su Ming. Starting today, I will come here to fight with you often. Of course, your strength is still too weak now. Su Ming said lightly. In return, I will give you endless food. Broly, I hope you don't let me down. Facing Su Ming's tirade-like words, Broly remained silent the whole time. Su Ming doesn't care about this either. What he cares about is how to quickly train this guy so that he can quickly gain experience in the future. Clatter. Su Ming dropped something similar to a capsule, and after explaining how to use it, he disappeared into the cave. After Su Ming left for a while, Broly on the ground took something similar to a capsule in his hand in the dark, and after thinking for a moment, he followed what Su Ming said and opened the thing. Moment. A portable small house appeared in the dark cave. Living in this dark environment all year round, Broly's eyesight is naturally very suitable for the darkness. It didn't take long before he successfully found the door of the portable small house and walked in. After entering this portable small house, Broly's face was filled with shock. At this time, he noticed the delicious food on the side table. The fragrant smell made him run quickly, and then he ate Heisei like a starved ghost reincarnated. IG 764, a day in May. The 6th universe, the realm of gods of destruction, is on the branches of the huge sacred tree. Su Ming slowly got out of the meditation state and stood up. Now, his face was full of excitement. 3 years have passed since the last time I left from Wampa Star. In the past 3 years, his strength development can be described as terrifying. Host: Su Ming. Level: 14. Realm: 1% of the Realm of God. Combat Power: 1 Capital. Skills: 10 times Kaioken without side effects, Flash Time for 1 second, Destructive Power, Reverse Time by 30 seconds, Ultra Instinct, an advanced version of Instant Transmission. Item: Immortal Bean X999, Earth Gourmet House, Elementary Practice House. This is his current character attribute panel. It seems a little slow to go from level 9 to level 14 in 3 years. But in fact, this progress is already considered fast for his current experience value. Now, it is rare for him to gain 5 points of experience after playing with Champa for more than 10 minutes. Because, under the same combat power, Champa could no longer give Su Ming the slightest feeling of fighting. Pure crushing. Certainly, Champa was definitely the one that got run over. I really don't know how long it will take to reach level 100. Su Ming smiled helplessly, but fortunately, he is only level 14 now, and he has already reached the combat power of 1 Jing. If he reaches level 100 one day, wouldn't he surpass the latitude of Dragon Ball and become the strongest yet? However, this is just thinking about it. The specifics are only real after reaching that level. Call out. Su Ming's figure flickered for a moment, and disappeared directly above the branches of the sacred tree. Next second, when he reappeared, he had already arrived on Wampa Star. During these 3 years, Su Ming only came to see how Broly was growing, but he didn't fight him once. Today, he was going to test Broly's strength. After all, this guy has a super bloodline. Boom. When Su Ming just arrived, he looked down and saw that on the ground, Broly had just punched and killed a giant beast. At the moment when he picked up the giant beast, he seemed to be aware of it and looked up. The 4 eyes met, and a series of lightning sparks exploded between the eyes of the two. Boom. Rumble. Broly threw the corpse of the giant beast on his shoulders to the ground at will, and then the whole person soared into the sky, facing Su Ming in the sky in an instant. You, the guy from before. Broly obviously doesn't talk much, and now he speaks in a faltering manner. Yes, 3 years ago, I lost a small portable house to you. Su Ming smiled and nodded. What do you want to do? Broly stared at Su Ming with a frown. Your strength. Su Ming didn't answer Broly, but stared at him, and found that his current combat power was as terrifying as 10 billion. You know, the current year is IG 764. In the official history of Dragon Ball, the current plot has only developed to the stage close to the length of artificial humans. Son Goku, who has the highest combat power, is only worth less than 1 billion points of combat power. And what about Broly? A person living alone on the Wampa Star, just the self-increased combat power, has now reached a terrifying 10 billion. Comparing the two, in terms of talent, there is absolutely no point in comparing the two. Broly, blast Son Goku. Even, in Su Ming's view, Broly is completely the kind of person who becomes stronger as he fights. He is different from Son Goku, who becomes stronger when he encounters strength. He fights more and more passionately as time goes by, and his whole body the strength will also become more and more terrifying. In the original book, Broly almost died because of his perverted ability. Because he never knows that exhaustion will exhaust his vitality to achieve this state of eternal power. Do you want to become stronger? Su Ming stared at Broly with a smile, and asked. Powerful. Broly had no idea about this kind of thing, frowned slightly, and said, I just want to be able to eat enough every day, that's all. Strong strength. Eating enough is nothing more than an easy thing. Su Ming twitched his finger at Broly, and said lightly, come on, let me see your current strength, which level can you explode to the highest? Broly is a machine that can be cultivated without any trouble to gain experience. As long as this guy can fight, then he can crazily increase his strength in battle. Just like the fighting power is only 10 billion now, Su Ming suspects that as long as 2 people fight today, this guy can at least soar to 20 billion or even more than 30 billion fighting power. This is still Su Ming's conservative estimate, and he is not sure which level he can really rise to. All in all, it will only be more than he guessed, definitely not less. I'm not interested in fighting with you. Broly rejected Su Ming, shaking his head and saying, I hate fighting. Not interested in fighting with me. Su Ming couldn't help shaking his head and laughing. To be honest, for a man who knows Xuanchao's blood, these words are indeed a bit funny. Boom. Su Ming didn't talk nonsense at all, and burst into breath directly. A powerful aura burst out and rushed straight into the sky, making Brawly's face show a little shock. He thought he was already strong enough, but Su Ming's aura at this moment made him understand that there is a sky beyond the sky, and there are people beyond people. Boom. I don't know if it was influenced by Su Ming's powerful energy, but Brawly burst out of breath unconsciously. Brawly has a super bloodline, and his aura is extremely violent. At this moment, he has not yet mastered the transformation form of Super Saiyan, and his normal strength has reached a terrifying 10 billion points. It is not difficult to imagine how terrifying his strength will be after he controls the transformation form of Super Saiyan. This guy is indeed qualified to be my opponent and slowly cultivate. Su Ming stared at Brawly with fiery eyes, flew forward and initiated his attack. The current Brawly is still in the seedling stage, so Su Ming's combat prowess will naturally not crush him too much. Therefore, this battle can be described as a battle of guidance for this guy. Etc. Su Ming suddenly thought of something, and a little surprised look appeared on his face. That is, if he fought Brawly hard and enjoyed the passion brought by the battle while lowering his own strength, will his experience value increase? Thinking of this, Su Ming's eyes lit up. Boom. He picked up his speed and arrived in front of Brawly in an instant. Boom. Hands up. A punch came out violently. Moment. Brawly was sent flying by him. In midair, Brawly quickly stabilized his body. As a Saiyan, and a Saiyan with super blood, Brawly's fighting talent is integrated into his bone marrow. The moment he was blasted out, Brawly had already entered a fighting state. As soon as he stabilized his body, he raised his hand and released a super powerful energy cannon towards Su Ming. Boom. Rumble. Facing the bombardment of Brawly's energy cannon, Su Ming naturally dodged extremely smoothly. Looking at the mountains that exploded behind him, he suddenly grinned. Call out. Su Ming stepped forward and appeared in front of Brawly in an instant. Boom. Boom. The two wrestled together, punching to the flesh, and the sound of fierce collisions kept startling in the sky. And as Su Ming's body gradually heated up, a system notification suddenly sounded in his mind. Enjoy the battle, experience value +10. Enjoy the battle, experience value +5. Enjoy the battle, experience value +10. Chapter 21. Boom. The battle between Su Ming and Brawly was very dynamic. Hit from the earth to the sky, then from the sky to the depths of the sea, and then fly out of the Wampa star, and come to the outer stratosphere to face the waves. And as the battle between the two became more intense, Brawly's strength also became more terrifying. When he fought back to the land of Wampa from the stratosphere outside Wampa again, Brawly's combat power, which was originally 10 billion, had soared to 20 billion. This guy is the real battle perpetual motion machine, he doesn't know how to get tired at all. Su Ming panted slightly and looked at Brawly, who seemed not to have had a bit of exhaustion, and couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Call out. Drink. When Su Ming was feeling emotional, Brawly charged forward, squeezed his sandbag-sized fist, and rushed towards Su Ming's face aggressively. Boom. Su Ming didn't pay attention, and Brawly caught the gap time, and punched the door in front of him with a fist. Blood flew all over in an instant, and he flew upside down. Good guy. Su Ming, who flew upside down, felt a burst of pain. He actually forgot that he was blinded by the Ultra Instinct Jiao state. In other words, the current him does not have the passive skills to enjoy Ultra Instinct Mega. As long as he was distracted and not paying attention, Brawly would definitely seize the opportunity and beat him up severely. Drink. The punch that Brawly hit Su Ming seemed to inspire a rage deep in his heart, only to see that his surroundings gradually began to spread a dark green energy arrogance. Oh. Su Ming stabilized his body, wiped the blood from his face, and then looked towards Brawly. When he saw his fighting power soaring wildly, his face suddenly showed surprise. 50 billion combat power points. 100 billion combat points. 150 billion combat power points. ... In just a few seconds, Brawly's combat power skyrocketed from 20 billion points to 150 billion points. Moreover, the speed at which his combat power has skyrocketed has not stopped. Hey guy, is this going to transform into Super Saiyan form? Su Ming's eyes narrowed slightly, and he became excited in an instant. Boom! Like Broly, he responded by bursting out of breath. Soon, Broly's combat power has completely stabilized, and it's fixed at 1 trillion, which is 1 trillion. 50 times increase in combat power. This is indeed Broly in Super Saiyan form. Su Ming felt Broly's fighting power at the moment, and nodded secretly. Broly's transformation is different from Son Goku's and other Saiyans' transformations, as there is a clear shape name to speak of. Broly, once he enters this kind of transformation similar to Berserk mode, he will have unlimited enhancement settings. This is why the original version of Broly received a box lunch early. Too strong. This kind of power is beyond the essence of the Dragon Ball. The current Broly is a new version of Broly. It feels far less violent than the old version of the original Broly. I don't know if it can reach the realm of the legendary Super Saiyan 3. Or, in other words, the realm of the god of the legendary Super Saiyan. Quote, there are only a few forms of Broly. There are only a few forms that Su Ming can count, can do, and can blow the sky away. As for the legendary Super Saiyan 4, there is also the god of the legendary Super Saiyan 4, which is the Super Saiyan 4 boundary breakthrough form. Su Ming didn't think about it, and he didn't know whether there are two different transformation methods belonging to Saiyan in this world at the same time. Speaking of the Super Saiyan 4 boundary breakthrough form, Su Ming's heart suddenly became hot. The power of this form can be said to be extremely powerful. According to Su Ming's guess, it is at least the level of gods of destruction level combat power. Call out, drink, boom. When Su Ming was in a daze, Broly rushed towards him, so fast that as soon as the loud shout fell, his fist had already hit his abdomen. Puff! The power of this punch directly made Su Ming spit out a mouthful of bitterness, and his face turned pale at this moment. Drink, boom, boom, boom. Broly almost fell into a state of rage, and punched Su Ming violently, causing the latter to let out bursts of painful screams. Since his debut, powerful players such as Champa and Beerus have not beaten him like this, but Broly has done it. Even though he didn't show his real strength, but it's not difficult to see from the side how perverted this guy Broly is. After all, in the theatrical version, this guy can be regarded as the man who pressed Vegito on the ground and rubbed for a while. Boom! Su Ming didn't think about anything else anymore. His body exploded with brilliant brilliance, and a powerful energy arrogance burst out from him. Boom! Raise your hand. Su Ming blocked Broly's punch. Okay. Facing Su Ming's punch, Broly frowned slightly, and the strength in his hand suddenly exploded, pressing towards Su Ming again. Boom! This time, Su Ming reacted, and just turned sideways, easily dodging Broly's fierce punch, and slashed down with a hand knife in his backhand, hitting the back of Broly's neck. Boom! The powerful force caused Broly's whole body to sink deep into the ground, leaving only one head on the ground. Su Ming took a step forward, raised his hand, and a blast of super energy bombarded his face directly. Boom! Rumble! At this moment, the entire ground shook, pieces of sand and rocks flew up, and bursts of deafening explosions also rang out in the field. This kid's growth is too terrifying. Su Ming retreated a few hundred meters, lifted into the air, folded his hands on his chest, and looked down at a dark mushroom cloud that rose up due to the explosion, with a strange brilliance in his eyes. In just a few seconds just now, Broly grew up again. In the form of transforming into Super Saiyan, his combat power skyrocketed from 1 trillion to 1.5 trillion. This kind of growth talent in battle is Su Ming, and he can't help but exclaim, it's so terrifying. Call out. Just when Su Ming was amazed at Broly's growth talent, a figure rushed out of the pitch-black smoke and arrived in front of him in an instant. Boom! Hearing the roar of punching, Su Ming reacted instantly, raised his hand and punched out. At this moment, the two fists clashed together, and there was a burst of turmoil in the space. Listen carefully, and there is a subtle, buzzing sound spreading in the air. It should be over. If this fight continues, this guy Broly will become more and more obsessed with fighting. His body load is too heavy, which is not a good thing. While defending against Broly's attack, Su Ming also thought about it. Now that he has made up his mind to train Broly to be an opponent to gain experience for himself, then he will be responsible for this opponent's late stage, and will not simply regard it as a machine without any life. Boom! With a dodge, Su Ming came behind Brawly, slashing his neck with a hand knife. Boom! Brawly fell to the ground and passed out immediately. Looking at the unconscious Brawly on the ground, Su Ming picked him up casually, and then returned to the dark cave where he lived. As soon as he threw it away, Su Ming disappeared directly above Wampa Star. Call out. Next second, when Su Ming appeared again, he had already arrived on the Earth in the Milky Way. Anyway, I came to the 7th universe, and Su Ming also thought about going to the Earth to buy some Earth delicacies from this world and go back to the 6th universe. The guy in Yexing Champa often asks him to find ingredients to cook Chinese cuisine. With this time, Su Ming might as well practice in the practice house. Okay, now, in the sky, Su Ming flew towards Exodus. But on the way, when he glanced casually out of the corner of his eye, he saw two guys in the sky staring at him maliciously. Su Ming stopped, and he also recognized who these two guys were. One tall and one short. Gao's name is King Cold. The short name, Frieza, is the most famous in the world of Dragon Ball, and is also called the most charming villain. Mechanical Frieza. From this point of view, the timing of my arrival on Earth is really a coincidence. Su Ming blinked. He naturally remembered the scene where the mechanical Frieza brought his father King Cold to Earth to find a place. However, this time, Frieza hadn't started to show off her might, and was directly cut in half by Date, who came from the future world to the world of main time and space. Speaking of Date, Su Ming glanced around again, but strangely, he did not see Date. Hey, Earthlings, do you know Son Goku, Vegeta and the others? While Su Ming was looking around, Frieza and King Cold flew over, looked at Su Ming with the eyes of a dead person, and asked a question. Do not know. Su Ming shook his head. Do not know. Frieza stared at Su Ming, and suddenly felt dull. When he raised his hand, a golden energy bullet appeared in his palm, and he said indifferently, in that case, you are the first person I have come to Earth to kill. Alone. Boom. After the words fell, Frieza confidently withdrew her hands and turned her head. At this moment, an explosion sounded. Frieza. King Cold stopped Frieza, who was about to leave, and said in amazement, this guy, escaped. Okay. Frieza froze for a moment, then turned around. Boom. The moment he turned around, Su Ming's fist hit his face directly. You just wanted to kill me. Su Ming grabbed Frieza's chest clothes with one hand, clenched his fist with the other hand, and punched him violently in the face. Ah! In the sky, at this moment, apart from Frieza's screams, there was no other sound. King Cold on the other side regained his composure in an instant, and charged towards Su Ming with a gloomy expression. Boom! Without looking back, Su Ming raised his hand and bombarded his chest with an energy bombardment, piercing his chest with such powerful force. Nani. Su Ming's strength is so powerful, even if he hits casually, how can King Cold be able to touch porcelain? Looking at the big bloody hole in his chest, a look of horror appeared on his face. A breath of death enveloped his heart in an instant. Boom! In the end, King Cold collapsed weakly and fell to the ground from a high altitude, his whole body fell into a ball of meat sauce. Okay. At the same time, when King Cold died at the hands of Su Ming, a figure suddenly appeared high above the sky. He looked at the strange man who kept beating the Frieza and couldn't help frowning. Strange. Who is he? The owner of this figure is Trunks from the future world. He stared at Su Ming, feeling strange. At this stage, apart from Frieza who has the strength to attack the Earth for revenge, is there anyone else on Earth who can have this strength? If you want to kill me, then I can't keep you. Now, Su Ming grabbed Frieza's face with one hand, and while he was struggling wildly, a super powerful energy ball blasted out of his palm. Boom! Rumble! Moment! The roar of explosions resounded throughout the sky. Clap! After Su Ming killed Frieza, he patted his hand as if nothing had happened, and inadvertently glanced at Date who was in a state of shock, and then his figure flickered and disappeared into the sky. Who is he? After Su Ming disappeared, Date finally regained his composure, and exclaimed in shock. On Su Ming's side, he didn't care that the scene of him killing Frieza was seen by Date. After arriving in Exodus to buy some food, he left the Earth directly. As for what he bought with, diamonds are a hard currency on Earth. But outside the Earth, shiny things like diamonds are completely mass goods. After returning from the 7th universe, Su Ming returned directly to the Gods of Destruction world of the 6th universe. Now he is almost settled in the Gods of Destruction world of the 6th universe. It seems that he is a trainee Supreme Kai of the 6th universe, but in fact, his identity is like a candidate for Gods of Destruction of the 6th universe. After throwing some cakes and instant noodles bought on Earth to Champa, Su Ming went directly into the practice house and began to practice. For him, nothing is more exciting than the growth of combat power. If there is, it is a soaring level. Flash. 3 more years have passed since Su Ming returned to the 6th universe. IG 767, a day in May. Su Ming walked out of the practice house. The expression on his face couldn't tell whether the effect of this retreat was good or bad. Host. Su Ming. Level. 20. Realm. 5% of the Realm of God. Bloodline. Human. Combat power. 100 Beijing. Skills. 10 times Kaioken without side effects. Flash time for 1.2 seconds. Destructive power. Reverse time by 30 seconds. Perfect Ultra Instinct. Advanced version of instant transmission. Item. Immortal Bean X999. Earth Gourmet House. Elementary Practice House. After checking his character attribute panel, a smile slowly appeared on Su Ming's expressionless face. That's right. In the past 3 years, the improvement from the previous 3 years is simply not the same level. Su Ming nodded in satisfaction. First, his God realm reached 5%. Although he didn't know much about this so-called God's domain, he vaguely understood that as long as the progress bar of this God's domain gradually deepened, it meant that he was not far away from becoming a real God. Now, his combat power has reached a terrifying 100 capitals. This level of combat power, as long as Su Ming wants to, can become a certain universe at any time, similar to Frieza's status in the 7th universe as the Overlord. Perfect Ultra Instinct. The most important thing, of course, is that he has finally mastered the Perfect Ultra Instinct. Today, his apparent combat power is around 100 Beijing. But he guessed that his final combat power value is definitely dozens of grades beyond the level of 100 Beijing. Well, Su Ming stretched comfortably, and then the figure flickered and disappeared in place. Next second, when he reappeared, he had already arrived in the palace where Champa lived. Lord Champa. Vados. Su Ming walked slowly, shouting in his mouth. When he walked through a hall and came to the place where he received guests, a tall, beautiful woman appeared in Su Ming's sight. Okay. Su Ming stared at this incomparably beautiful woman, with a little surprise on his face. From her attire and the angel staff held in this stunning woman's hand, Su Ming guessed her identity in an instant. This is an angel, but he has never seen this angel before. In other words, this is this world, the angel of a universe after the 12th universe. Thinking of this, Su Ming's pupils constricted involuntarily. Come yet, this is about to start, facing this brand new character from the original Dragon Ball world. This is what you guys call Su Ming, right? A deep voice sounded in the field. When Su Ming came back to his senses, he saw a blonde man staring at him in amazement. Judging from his not ugly attire, this should be a statue of Gods of Destruction. Su Ming, come quickly. Champa immediately waved to Su Ming, who was a little confused, and after he came over, he began to introduce Buzz, the Gods of Destruction of the 15th universe. Luna, the angel of the 15th universe. And this kid is Su Ming. The little dessert you ate just now was made by him. When introducing Su Ming, Champa had a little complacency on his face. Obviously, he is very proud of having a talent like Su Ming in his universe. Hello, Lord Buzz, and Miss Luna. Su Ming greeted with a smile and cupped his fists. Seeing is better than hearing 100 times. Baz laughed heartily, invited Su Ming to sit down, then pointed to the pastry on the table, and said, "What do you call this crispy thing? It's so delicious, you can't stop wanting to eat it." Pear Blossom Crisp. Su Ming glanced at the few pieces of pear blossom cakes left on the plate on the table, and said with a smile, "Lord Buzz likes it, I'll prepare some more for you later." Okay, then I thank you in advance. Buzz laughed heartily again. The Gods of Destruction of the 2 universes began to talk, and they were all small things reminiscing about the past, and occasionally talking about some secrets from many years ago. Su Ming listened with gusto. After all, these secrets belong to this world. It is far from enough to rely on his understanding of the original animation world of Dragon Ball in his previous life to survive in this real world. A communication, about an hour or so. Almost. Baz got up suddenly, looked at Champa with a smile, and said, "I feel very fulfilled in today's business, thank you for your hospitality, Champa." Ha ha ha. Champa also got up and laughed in response to Buzz's compliment. When leaving, Su Ming gave Buzz a capsule, which contained a lot of washa pastries, enough for him to eat for a while. If you save food, you can last a year with less talk. ... By the way, how is the strength of Lord Buzz compared to your strength, Lord Champa? After Gods of Destruction, Buzz and Angel Luna of the 15th universe leave completely. Su Ming asked a question. Of course, Buzz is too powerful. Champa nonchalantly picked up a piece of pear flour cake and ate it, casually said, "Since the 13th universe, the gods of destruction of a universe is stronger than the gods of destruction of a universe. Especially the gods of destruction of the 18th universe, that guy stands in front of me, and I have to honor him as an adult." Hearing Champa's words, Su Ming's mouth opened slightly. Good guy. For destroying Shendu, another gods of destruction has to be honored as a master, so how terrifying is the strength of gods of destruction in the 18th universe? Don't think too much, it must be a powerful existence at the level of angel-level combat power. Su Ming spent another few days in the gods of destruction world of the 6th universe. Immediately, he went to the 7th universe. He was stuck in time to come to the Earth of the 7th universe, because, recently is the day when the chapter of Cell officially opens. For an old Dragon Ball fan, the Cell chapter can be regarded as the most classic early chapter except Son Goku's first transformation into Super Saiyan 1 on Namek. Because, the transformation form of Super Saiyan 2 appeared in this chapter. Now, on a small island in the west of the Earth, Su Ming suddenly appeared above the island. Hey, as long as I eat you on the 18th, I can evolve into a full body shape. Number 18, don't struggle, let us become one and become the master of this world. As soon as Su Ming appeared, there was a burst of grinning laughter from below, which immediately attracted his attention. Blonde number 18, and Vegeta, the boss of the future world, and the ugly Cell. It's a good time to come. Su Ming couldn't help but thought inwardly, and then glanced around, but he didn't see the little bald Klin who was supposed to be guarding number 18, which made him a little surprised. It was not hard to see before that Su Ming didn't pay too much attention to the female characters in this world. After all, he came to this world at an awkward time compared to Bulma. Bulma is indeed a good heroine, but Su Ming, who is a pure love fighter, can't tolerate a little bit of her early black material, so it can be said that she has no interest in Bulma at all. However, Android 18 is different. This blonde girl can be said to have made many Dragon Ball fans hate Keelan's little bald head. Call out. Now, below, the ugly Cell has rushed towards the 18th. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of No. 18. Boom. Go away. A cold voice sounded in the arena, and number 18, who had closed her eyes, couldn't help but slowly open them, only to see a man guarding her in front of her, which made her heart beat wildly. Who? It's him, the gentleman from 3 years ago. The person who kicked the Cell was naturally Su Ming. Compared with the astonishment of the others, Date was staring at Su Ming with a look of shock on his face. What was that gentleman 3 years ago? Vegeta frowned tightly, staring at Su Ming for a long time. 3 years ago, this gentleman killed Frieza and King Cold who came to Earth. Dad explained. Nani? Vegeta's eyes widened suddenly, and then he looked at Su Ming, with an inconceivable look flashing in his eyes. This guy looks ordinary, doesn't seem to have the strength to kill Frieza and King Cold at all. Thank you, Field. Number 18 thought that what was waiting for her would be caught and absorbed by Cell, but she didn't expect someone to save her, which made her beautiful face show a little reassuring smile. Fine. Su Ming turned around and smiled at number 18, then looked forward again. Cell, who was kicked away by him, got up from the ground and was looking at Su Ming with resentment at the moment. Who are you? If eyes could kill, Su Ming might have been killed hundreds or even thousands of times by Cell's eyes. You don't need to know who I am. Su Ming didn't even bother to put his eyes on Cell, and looked at Vegeta on the side. Tien Shinhan and the others glanced over, and couldn't help shaking their heads. This is nothing more than the fact that number 18 will marry the little bald Clin in the original book. It is purely the indifference of other people, which brings out the greatness of the little bald Clin. But, Su Ming was rather curious as to why Keelan wasn't here to guard No. 18. If he remembered correctly, when number 18 just woke up, he kissed Keelan's bald head. Be careful. Just when Su Ming was thinking, Cell rushed towards him suddenly, so frightened that number 18 immediately exclaimed, and at the same time subconsciously moved towards Su Ming's front. Hearing the exclamation in his ears, Su Ming came back to his senses in an instant, grabbed number 18 who was trying to get in front of him, and then hugged him into his arms, hugging him tightly. Arms. From the perspective of number 18, it is at this moment that Su Ming's body is exuding endless male hormones, making her attracted heart pound like a deer. At this moment, she admitted that her heart was moved. Women should stay behind men and protect them. Don't worry, I'm here for everything. Su Ming casually uttered a sentence, which raised his already extremely tall image and No 18's heart even more infinitely. There is a saying that pretending to be invisible is the most deadly. As for Su Ming's intangible charm, for number 18, its lethality can be said to be second to second. Boom. On Su Ming's side, he raised his hand and randomly blasted out an energy cannon. Rumble. When this energy bombarded Cell's body, the latter instantly turned into fly ash under a golden light. Dead, dead. And when this scene was seen by Date and the others, their eyes widened in vain, and an expression of disbelief appeared on their faces. In their view, the extremely powerful Cell was just casually killed by this ordinary-looking man in front of him. Impossible. Vegeta was the first to not believe it. He had been waiting for Cell to become a full-body form, and then slaughtered it with his own hands to prove the strength of his King Vegeta son. Now what? Not to mention the perfect Cell. Even if the Cell has not reached the perfect body, people are gone, so how can he prove himself? My prey was just snatched by an unknown guy. Vegeta looked at Su Ming with a cold look. Oops, not good. Date, who was on the side, came to his senses, and found his father walking towards Su Ming quickly, which made his expression change suddenly, and he hurriedly chased after him. Although Date knows the strength of his father Vegeta, for him, seeing Su Ming easily kill Frieza 3 years ago, he wants to get this guy's strength as absolutely extraordinary. In addition, Su Ming killed Cell vigorously today, so he was worried that Vegeta was not the opponent of this strange man. Who are you? Date has followed up in an instant, but it is still a step too late. Vegeta stood in front of Su Ming at the moment, looked at the strange man suspiciously, and said coldly, I seriously doubt that you are with that fellow Cell. I have never seen you before on Earth. Su Ming, who was just about to introduce himself to number 18, heard Vegeta's voice behind him, and couldn't help but slightly frown. Looking back, this guy was staring at him with an extremely unhappy look, which made him speechless. There are so many people on Earth, isn't it normal that you haven't seen anything? Su Ming said lightly, besides, I don't know you either. Can I confirm that you are with Cell? The 18th almost fell into Cell's hands just now. Once absorbed by it, a complete body will be born. Cell, the consequences are unimaginable, but none of you have made a move, what is this? As soon as these words came out, Vegeta fell silent for an instant. Immediately afterwards, there was another sneer, and Vegeta said indifferently, the life and death of others, what does it matter to me? Boom. As Vegeta's words fell, he received a punch directly in the stomach. Puff. The powerful force caused Vegeta to spit out a mouthful of blood. Thump thump. Vegeta hugged his abdomen and kept retreating. If it hadn't been for Date to support him in time, otherwise, he would have to retreat at least a few hundred meters to stabilize his body. Vegeta looked at Su Ming in pain, killing intent burst out from his eyes. Boom. Moment. Vegeta directly transformed into Super Saiyan 1, with powerful energy centered on him, rushing towards the surroundings. Stinky fish and rotten shrimp. Su Ming just glanced at it casually, then looked away, smiled gently at number 18 beside him, and said, I'll get rid of this guy first. Okay. Number 18 nodded obediently, completely unable to tell that her personality was actually that of a strong woman. Boom. Vegeta set off. Dad! Date exclaimed. Call out. Vegeta's speed was very fast, and he rushed to Su Ming in the blink of an eye. Boom. Facing Vegeta's punch, Su Ming just stepped forward, raised his hand and blasted out with a straight punch. Moment. I saw that Vegeta's face straight hit Su Ming's fist. Are you touching porcelain? Su Ming looked at Vegeta sarcastically, increased the strength in his hands, and directly blasted him flying. Su Ming really doesn't have much interest in Vegeta's strength now. If you really want to kill him, poke a finger down, and Vegeta will definitely die. Trunks, watch your old man. If he really wants to die, I don't mind sending him to hell to meet Cell, Frieza. Su Ming glanced at the nervous Date indifferently, and said, yes, sir. Although Date didn't know Su Ming's real combat strength, but he had seen him make 3 shots, and it was not difficult to guess that this strange man's strength was absolutely extraordinary just based on the strength displayed on the surface. I haven't asked for your name yet. Vegeta flew out, and number 18 immediately asked in a low voice. My name is Su Ming. Su Ming smiled at number 18 and said his name. I have to say that the appearance of number 18 is indeed high. At close range, that skin is so delicate that one can't help but want to pinch it lightly. Su Ming, number 18 murmured softly, then looked at Su Ming with bright eyes, and said, my name is Lazuli, of course, you can also call me number 18. I think Lazuli sounds better. Su Ming stared at number 18 and smiled. Yes, Mr. Su Ming, you can call him whatever you want. Number 18 was stared at by Su Ming, and she couldn't help lowering her head shyly. As an artificial human who is already lonely in his heart, Su Ming's hero debut just now undoubtedly left a full impression on No 18's heart. Drink. Boom. Just when the two were looking at each other's eyes, Vegeta's roar suddenly sounded from the other side. To this, Su Ming's eyelids drooped immediately, and he looked away expressionlessly. At the same time, he also raised his hand, and swung it out with a slap. Snapped. At the moment Su Ming slapped him, Vegeta's face, who was rushing towards him at an extremely fast speed, just hit his slap. Moment. Vegeta spun a few times in the air, and then fell heavily to the ground. Su Ming stepped forward and stepped directly on Vegeta's head, then slightly bent down, looked at Vegeta under his feet indifferently, and said, Vegeta, if you want to die, I don't mind granting your wish. Vegeta in this period is indeed quite inflated. At least for Su Ming, Vegeta in the early and midterm is typically a self-centered rebellious boy. Gentlemen, seeing this scene, Date's expression changed, and he hurried up, bowing and apologizing to Su Ming, my father was just impulsive, please be merciful. Facing Date's pleading, Su Ming directly ignored, and slowly stretched out his hand, facing Vegeta's head under his feet, a golden energy bomb slowly condensed from his palm. Gentlemen, Date swallowed, and spoke again. But, Su Ming glanced over, and the latter was immediately frightened and forced to stay in place. Etc. At this moment, an exclamation sounded. This familiar voice. Su Ming's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked towards the sky on one side, only to see a man flying towards him with a look of anxiety on his face. This man is naturally the first hero of Dragon Ball, Son Goku. Soon, Son Goku landed on the ground, seeing Vegeta being stepped on by Su Ming, his eyes could not help but focus, and there was a little surprise on his face. In his opinion, Vegeta's strength was already very strong, but now he was trampled on so casually by a strange man, without even the ability to resist. One can imagine how powerful this man with Vegeta on his feet must be. Yo, hello, I'm Son Goku. Son Goku stepped forward and greeted Su Ming warmly and proactively. Su Ming said lightly. Su Ming, good name, but, this Vegeta is our good friend, he must be too reckless today, I wonder if we can let him go. Son Goku scratched the back of his head with a silly smile, and said, don't worry, he must have a long memory, and he will never be impulsive again. Oh, Su Ming looked down and saw Vegeta gritted his teeth, and the expression on his face did not seem to admit defeat at all, which made him chuckle lightly. Son Goku, take a good look at this guy to see if he still wants to die. Cough cough cough. Son Goku looked down, and the hatred and murderous intent in Vegeta's eyes was overwhelming. He immediately coughed twice, and said in a low voice, your strength is so powerful, I can't help but want to fight you. I don't know, can you satisfy my little wish? You. Su Ming stared at Son Goku, shook his head, you are not my opponent now. Boom. He understood that Son Goku just wanted to attract his attention. Immediately, he slowly raised his foot and kicked Vegeta flying out of the ground. Dad. Date's expression changed, and he hurriedly chased him out. Don't worry, I won't die. Su Ming yawned, casually glanced at Son Goku who was still looking at him with full fighting spirit, waved his hand and said, you are still far behind, when will you break through the transformation form of Super Saiyan 1? Try to challenge me again. Okay. Hearing Su Ming's words, Son Goku, who was full of fighting spirit, suddenly showed astonishment on his face, exclaimed, and said, you still know Super Saiyan 1? Wait. You mean, Super Saiyan 1 changes above the body form, is there a higher level transformation form? Otherwise, Su Ming smiled lightly, glanced around casually, and finally took a second look at Son Gohan who was standing next to Piccolo, and then put his gaze on Son Goku in front of him, and said, above Super Saiyan 1, it is Super Saiyan 2, which will be a 100-fold increase in normal combat power. Nani? Super Saiyan 2, the normal increase in combat power is 100 times. Son Goku's eyes widened suddenly, then stared at Su Ming, and said in surprise, Su Ming, are you from the Saiyan clan? Otherwise, how do you know so much about Super Saiyan's transformation form? I said I have the ability to predict, do you believe it? Su Ming made a joke with a chuckle, and then continued, actually, at this stage, Super Saiyan 2 is not difficult for you to achieve. Even Super Saiyan 3, you just need to put in dozens of times more effort than usual can be achieved. As for the Super Saiyan God, this requires you to get an opportunity. Come on, Son Goku, wait for the day you become a Super Saiyan God, come and challenge me again. While speaking, Su Ming disappeared in place under the adoring eyes of the crowd, who seemed to be watching a prophet. Su Ming. After Su Ming disappeared for a while, number 18 finally realized it, and immediately shouted loudly. Seventh universe. In the realm of gods of destruction. Now, Su Ming came from above the earth. The follow-up events on earth are none of his business. As for number 18, he has some affection for this woman, but he also understands that this is just an objective filter from his previous life. In this life, if there is any connection between the two, Su Ming will not refuse. But no, Su Ming will not force it. After all, he is not the kind of man who can't move when he sees a beautiful woman. As everyone knows, even if Su Ming doesn't have too many unreasonable thoughts about number 18 at the moment, the latter is still very impressed with his hero appearance today. He was even more deeply moved by his saying, women should be behind men. From number 18 and Keelan in the original book, it is not difficult to see that this is a woman who dares to love and hate. Once she likes her, she is really in love. If Su Ming could see through No 18's psychology, at that time he really might not have been able to stay on Earth and get along with number 18 for a long time. Why are you here again? Su Ming was suddenly in the gods of destruction world of the 7th universe, which made Beerus, who was eating a small dessert with Whis, suddenly look shocked. From his words, it is not difficult to hear that in recent years, Su Ming has come to the gods of destruction world of the 7th universe more than once. Cough cough cough. Seeing Beerus dodging, Su Ming immediately coughed twice, and said, don't worry, Master Beerus. This time I'm coming to the 7th universe, I didn't come to fight with you. Even if you didn't come to fight, I don't think you have any good intentions. Beerus stared at Su Ming extremely vigilantly. In recent years, Su Ming has been to the 7th universe at least 6 or 7 times. Every time you come, if you don't fight him, you fight him. So, this time Beerus directly chose not to believe it. After all, every time he had to be able to fight Su Ming under the same combat power, and every time he was pressed down on the ground and rubbed violently, there was no way to fight back. This is not a fight, it is pure abuse. Master Beerus, please don't look at me like that. This time, I'm here to introduce you to a good place. There are a lot of delicious food on that planet. Believe me, you will never be disappointed. Su Ming narrowed his eyes and laughed. This time it's coming. Su Ming obviously came prepared. His purpose from the very beginning was very simple, that is to disrupt the proper plot of the Dragon Ball world, and he wanted to see if some butterfly effects could have an impact on the plot of this world. It was a very interesting experiment, at least for Su Ming. Oh, when Beerus heard Su Ming's words, his face showed surprise, he raised his brows and said, will you be so kind? And the planet you mentioned is in the 6th universe. I bet as the gods of destruction of the 7th universe, it is impossible to often go to a certain planet in the 6th universe to eat delicious food. It doesn't matter once or twice, but if Beerus once fell in love with the food of that planet, and that planet belongs to the 6th universe, then if he goes to that planet again and again and gets caught, he may be deprived of the 7th universe. The identity of the universe gods of destruction. Beerus was unwilling to do such a thing that would endanger his status. Hearing what Beerus said, Su Ming smiled and shook his head, and said, "Don't worry, Master Beerus, the planet I'm talking about is in the 7th universe." "Really? If this is the case, then I will be excited." Beerus's eyes lit up and he rubbed his hands together excitedly. It would be a very happy thing for him to have a gourmet planet in his universe. However, he was slightly curious that, as the 7th universe gods of destruction, he didn't know about it, but Su Ming, who was an apprentice Supreme Kai from the 6th universe, knew it, which made him feel a little strange. "What's the name of that planet? Where is it?" Beerus felt strange, but he couldn't wait to ask again. "Galaxy, Earth." Su Ming smiled slightly and said. An hour later, 6th universe, in the Supreme Kai world. Now, Su Ming is back from gods of destruction in the 7th universe. After telling the Beerus guy about the Earth, it's none of Su Ming's business. This guy can go anytime. In his opinion, no matter what time period Beerus goes, the overall plot of the Dragon Ball world will not change much. However, some small plots may undergo different changes, which is probably inevitable. I hope Son Goku and Vegeta can get Whis guidance in advance, so that these two guys can grow faster. Su Ming thinks that his starting point is good. As long as Son Goku and Vegeta become stronger, he will have two slightly better scoring machines. Su Ming, why are you here? Now, in the Supreme Kai world of the 6th universe, Fuwa, who was making tea, saw Su Ming suddenly appearing, and his face suddenly revealed a look of surprise. "Long time no see, Foy." Su Ming sat across from Fuwa with a smile, and directly drank a cup of tea that Fuwa had poured for him, and then continued, "Your tea art is getting better and better. I, who don't know much about tea, think it's delicious." Ha ha ha. Hearing Su Ming's praise, Fuwa burst into laughter, poured him another cup of tea, and said, "What? Are you free to go back to the Supreme Kai world today? I have been practicing in recent years, and I want to relax." Su Ming stretched his waist and said, "By the way, is there any interesting task? Whether it's gods of destruction or Supreme Kai, each has its own mission." Su Ming recently wanted to practice while relaxing. After thinking about it, he was going to try out a task belonging to Supreme Kai. Oh, hearing Su Ming's words, Fuwa showed a little surprised look on his face, then pondered for a while, and said, "In this case, I do have something to ask you for." "Oh, what is it?" Su Ming said. "It's not a big deal, but in the 6th universe, there was a riot on a planet called Planet Shirata not long ago." Fuwa said, "I didn't have time to deal with it before, why don't you go?" Planet Shirata. When Su Ming heard the name of this planet, he was taken aback for a moment, and then a little surprise appeared on his face, and he asked, "Is the aborigine of that planet a race called Saiyan? Do you know this race?" Fuwa looked at Su Ming in surprise. "Heard about it." Su Ming nodded. "So, do you want me to solve the riot that happened on planet Shirata? The riot is basically resolved, and the only thing left is to appease these Saiyans." Foy spoke. "Understood. This task is indeed a bit easy." Su Ming nodded, then slowly got up from the stool, and said, "If that's the case, then I'll take action. Call out." As soon as the voice fell, Su Ming's figure disappeared in the Supreme Kai world of the 6th universe. Su Ming is now a trainee Supreme Kai of the 6th universe, and he knows all the life-bearing planets in the 6th universe like the back of his hand. In an instant, the location of the planet Shirata was located. Now, with his arrival, a system notification sounded in his mind. "Ding! The mission is open. Guide a Saiyan on the planet Shirata to successfully transform into a Super Saiyan. Reward: God's Domain Progress Bar plus 2%, Combat Power plus 100 Jing. Note: Guide 2 Saiyans to successfully transform into Super Saiyans, and the rewards will be doubled. ... Oh, when the task of the system was released, Su Ming's eyelids twitched, and a funny smile appeared on his face. However, He did not expect that the system's missions would not appear once in a few years, but once, the rewards would be so generous. You know, the reward for this mission is more generous than the reward for leveling up. This is only on the surface, and don't forget the follow-up notes. Once he guides 2 Saiyans to successfully transform into a Super Saiyan form, they will get a 4% progress bar in the domain of God and a combat power bonus of 200 Jing. So, 3 people, or even 4 people. Su Ming's eyes narrowed immediately. Of course, Su Ming may not be able to guide it during this period, and 4 or 5 people have successfully transformed into Super Saiyan. But he has absolute self-confidence, and it is no problem to be able to guide 2 or 3 transformations into Super Saiyan. Etc. Su Ming suddenly remembered one thing, that is, the original Dragon Ball Super period, Gabe, Caulifla, and Kale. These 3 people don't seem to be too old. Now, he came to planet Shirata so early, could these little kids have not been born yet? Thinking of this, Su Ming's mouth opened slightly. Good guy, this task from the emotional system is not as simple as imagined. After all, even if these 3 talented little guys are born, they will definitely not be too old at this moment. It's better to have already been born, otherwise, for this task, I can guide a Saiyan who can transform into a Super Saiyan. That's my ability to blow the sky. Su Ming is not afraid of other things, only afraid that the trio of Gabe, Kale, and Caulifla will not be born. After all, for the race of Saiyan, no matter how young he is, his own potential is there, so Su Ming has the strength to guide his potential out. His practice house is not an ordinary practice house. Among them, it has the ability of the spiritual time room and the ability of the gravity room. Once these 3 guys are born, even if they are only 2 or 3 years old, Su Ming is absolutely confident that he can get 3 times the rewards for this mission. Call out. Su Ming didn't want to think too much, his figure flickered and disappeared in midair. Next second, when he reappeared, he had already arrived at the center of the planet Shirata. This is a big city, and the people passing by all around are Saiyan from the 6th universe. Su Ming glanced casually, and found that most of the Saiyans in the 6th universe are not too low in normal combat power, starting with 1,000 combat power. Individual tall young Saiyan has tens of thousands of fighting power. It can be seen that the overall level of Saiyan in the 6th universe is much higher than that of Saiyan in the 7th universe. On the way, the appearance of Su Ming also attracted the attention of the people around him. After all, Su Ming's face was too unfamiliar, and the clothes on his body were a bit weird for the Saiyans, so all the Saiyans stopped and stared at Su Ming strangely. Hey, who are you? It seems, it's not Saiyan on the planet Shirata, right? A youth Saiyan stared at Su Ming with a frown. I'm not, I need to find a man named Lien Suo now. Su Ming spoke directly. Captain Lien Suo, why are you looking for him? The youth Saiyan frowned even more tightly. I am Supreme Kai, a trainee from the 6th universe, and I have received a mission from above to check on the riots that happened not long ago on planet Shirata. Su Ming said lightly. Nani, God. Saiyan's complexion changed, and he looked at Su Ming twice more, then bowed respectfully to him, and said, Master God, please. Faced with this change in Saiyan's attitude, Su Ming was a little surprised. He thought these guys didn't know the gods, but now it seems that Fua should have been in contact with them, so he knows that the gods are controlling them above humans. Next, this young man, Saiyan, led Su Ming all the way, but within a few minutes, he came to a huge gate of the base. This is the base of the Saiyan Defense Force, Captain Lien Suo, right here. Youth Saiyan respectfully pushed open the gate of the base, and then introduced to Su Ming. In the recent riots, Captain Lien Suo's leg was seriously injured, but he is still fighting on the front line. It is really admirable. Facing Saiyan's eloquence, Su Ming just let out an, from time to time, and kept looking around. Sudden, his eyes fixed on a little boy. What's his name? Su Ming stopped suddenly, pointed at the little boy, and asked. Oh. Young Saiyan looked in the direction of Su Ming's finger. When he saw the little boy, he thought about it for a while, and then suddenly said, My lord, that little guy is named Gabe. He has already become a defensive player at a young age. The team member is a little guy with great potential. Yo, little Gabe, come here, Lord God seems to have something to say to you. After introducing it to Su Ming, he waved loudly at little Gabe who was not far away. Swish swish swish. Moment. As the voice of the young Saiyan fell, all the Saiyans who were exercising in the open space cast their gazes over one after another. Being watched by many people, Su Ming didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Yes, little Gabe regained his composure and ran over quickly. Brother Adon, is this the Lord God you mentioned? When the little Gabe arrived, he first greeted the young man Saiyan, then looked at Su Ming, then bowed respectfully to him, and said, Gabe, I greet you, Lord God. How old are you? Su Ming stared at little Gabe and asked. Back to Lord God, I am 4 years old. Although little Gabe was a little surprised why the Lord God asked about his age, he still replied very respectfully. 4 years. Su Ming's eyes flickered, and he stared at this kid. He was only 4 years old and had 3,000 combat power. To be honest, this talent is just average. However, Su Ming knew that this kid's cultivation talent might be mediocre, but his comprehension ability was super strong. After all, in the original book, this guy easily imitated Vegeta's special moves, and became the first among the Saiyans of the 6th universe to successfully transform into a Super Saiyan. If you want to solve the root cause of the riots, you need to strengthen yourself, Saiyan. Starting today, little Gabe, I will guide you in your practice, are you willing? Su Ming looked at Gabe with a smile and said. He believed that no one would reject him. Gabe himself is a Saiyan who loves his homeland. He can become stronger and have the ability to protect his homeland. He will definitely promise Su Ming to practice with him and become stronger. That, Lord God. At this time, Gabe suddenly raised his hand and said, Excuse me, can I let my little friend practice with you? Not too much. Su Ming pondered for a moment, then said, 1 or 2, no problem. On the huge planet Shirata, apart from Gabe, Caulifla, and Kale, Su Ming couldn't think of a fourth person who has the potential to transform into a Super Saiyan. It is good. Gabe bowed deeply to Su Ming, and then ran away quickly. This little guy is really lucky. Saiyan, a young man named Adan, showed envy on his face, and then continued to bring Su Ming to a room door and stopped. Knock knock. Adan knocked lightly on the door. Come in. There was a steady voice from inside. Squeak. Adan pushed open the door, and then invited Su Ming to enter, but he retreated and closed the door. Hello, Captain Lien Suo. Upon entering the door, Su Ming greeted with a smile. You are. Lien Suo looked at Su Ming strangely, but he had no impression of him at all. My name is Su Ming, and I am a trainee Supreme Kai from the 6th universe. I am here this time to completely solve the previous riots on your planet. Su Ming said. Jia, Supreme Kai. Lien Suo, who was sitting, immediately jumped up from his seat when he heard these 3 words. His face was full of horror. Obviously, he is aware of Supreme Kai's existence. My lord, please sit down. Lien Suo hastily limped over with his injured leg and invited Su Ming to take a seat. Su Ming glanced at his legs inadvertently, and his eyes flickered involuntarily. My lord, the riot this time is basically resolved. But it does not rule out that there will be another riot in the future. You see, can you give us some resources for the planet Shirata? In front of the absolute big shot, Lien Suo perfectly showed his humble side. His expression and movements were completely the true portrayal of a person living in the low class. Starting today, I will live on the planet Shirata for a short period of time. During this period, I can guide the cultivation of a few little guys. Su Ming said. Only with absolute strength can you fundamentally solve the emergence of riots. I say that, you should understand. Understand. A look of surprise appeared on Lien Suo's face. Boom. At this moment, the door of the room was suddenly knocked open. Next second, Gabe, Caulifla, and Kale, who was hiding behind Caulifla, appeared at the door. That, my lord. Adan buried his head in fear. It's okay. Su Ming waved his hand, and glanced at the little Caulifla who was staring at him. Obviously, the opening of the door of the room was exactly what this little girl did. What kind of god are you? Caulifla's character, that can be said to be fearless, can be regarded as the Son Goku of the 6th universe. The personalities of the two are basically the same. Caulifla. Lien Suo's face suddenly darkened, and he scolded, This is Supreme Kai, Master Su Ming. I don't care what kind of god he is, if he wants to guide Miss Ben to practice, then let me see your strength. Caulifla smiled coldly, and stepped back to the open space outside the room. Just when she was about to wave for Su-Ming to come out together, she was stunned. Now, in the room, there is nowhere to see Su-Ming. Hello, Caulifla. At this time, a gentle voice sounded behind Caulifla. Nani. Caulifla was instantly frightened and jumped up on the spot, then turned around and looked at Su-Ming in disbelief, pointed at him, and exclaimed, You are really not human. This is what I said. Hearing what Caulifla said, Su-Ming couldn't help but shook his head with a wry smile. Although she knew she wasn't scolding herself, no matter how it sounded like she was scolding someone. Caulifla, can't you see how powerful Master Su-Ming is? Gabe rushed over quickly, pulled Caulifla, who was still in a state of confusion, and said in a low voice, It is our great luck to practice with such a powerful Lord God. We will definitely be able to obtain extraordinary power. Caulifla didn't know what to say for a moment. 3 days later, in Su-Ming's practice house, the trio of Caulifla, Gabe, and Kale were crushed to the ground by the strong gravity and crawled forward. What kind of practice is this? Caulifla was full of swearing, and forcefully raised her head to glance at Su-Ming, who was sitting on a chair not far in front of her, enjoying the delicious food comfortably, and gritted her teeth. Caulifla, hold on. Maybe this is the entry test Master Su-Ming gave us. Gabe gritted his teeth tightly and crawled forward hard. Call out. At this moment, Su-Ming suddenly appeared in front of the three of them. It's been 3 days, and you still can't withstand 20 times the force of gravity, which is really disappointing. Su-Ming was condescending, looking down at the three of them, with an indifferent expression, completely lacking in the previous gentle attitude. According to your progress, let alone guide you to become stronger within a year. Even 10 years, I'm afraid it's just a waste of time. Quote. What did you say? Caulifla's violent temper instantly widened her eyes. I said, your endurance is nothing more than that. If the planet Shirata is only guarded by you, it may not be long before it will be destroyed by others. Su-Ming continued to sneer. Admit your incompetence. Boom. Moment. After Su-Ming's words fell, Caulifla, who was lying on the ground, exploded with a powerful energy aura. Boom. Immediately afterwards, a powerful energy arrogance also burst out from Gabe's body. See here. The corner of Su-Ming's mouth could not help but curl into a triumphant smile. As a die-hard Dragon Ball fan, he naturally understands how Saiyan should guide. Purely by excitement. That's right. Anger is the source of motivation for every Saiyan to become stronger. Su-Ming can even guarantee that he will beat Caulifla violently at this moment, and Kale may even directly awaken her invisible bloodline in the extreme anger. Master Su-Ming, although our strength is still very weak, we want to become stronger, but our determination to protect the planet Shirata is not weak at all. Little Gabe got up from the ground. At this moment, he was so excited by Su-Ming's words, he didn't know that he had overcome the gravity that had held him down for 3 days. Su-Ming laughed lightly. Boom. Just after he laughed twice, Caulifla suddenly clenched his fist and rushed over. Boom. Su-Ming realized in an instant, facing Caulifla's surprise attack with a punch, he just flicked a finger and sent it flying. Elder sister. Seeing this scene, Kai's face suddenly changed, and the breath on his body also grew stronger in an instant. Interesting. Su-Ming's eyes flickered for a moment, and he felt that it was almost time for these little guys to practice comfortably. Next, it's time to beat up. Su-Ming looked at Gabe and said, You guys have passed the first phase of instructional training. Next, it will be actual combat training. While speaking, he hooked his finger at Gabe, and continued, Use all the strength of your whole body to attack me. Drink. Gabe hesitated for a moment, then shouted loudly, clenched his fists and slammed towards Su-Ming. Boom. Su-Ming raised his hand and slapped it, easily sending it flying hundreds of meters away. Come again. Su-Ming shouted loudly. If he wanted to guide these little fellows quickly, he needed to be stricter. He doesn't have that much time to waste on these guys. 3 months. In the past 3 months at most, Su-Ming will leave planet Shirata no matter whether they succeed in transforming into Super Saiyan or not. Certainly, 3 months in the outside world, in the practice house, that is equivalent to 2.5 years in the past. Next, time passed day by day. 3 months in the outside world, and 2.5 years in the practice house passed quietly. This day, Su Ming looked at the three little guys in front of him. After 2.5 years of practice in the practice house, the height of these three little guys was a little taller. 8-year-old feeling. Very good. Su Ming nodded appreciatively, and said, your strength has reached the basic combat power of transforming into Super Saiyan. Gabe, Caulifla, listen to me next, and gather all the energy in your body on the back. Yes, after 2.5 years of devil training, no matter how disobedient a person is, in Su Ming's hands, he must be obedient. Now, the two little guys looked at each other, and then obeyed Su Ming's order, gathering all the energy of their bodies on their backs. Break through that layer of shackles. Su Ming gave a loud shout. Yes, drink. Gabe and Caulifla shouted immediately, and an extremely powerful breath of energy exploded from their bodies. At this moment, as their aura continued to rise, the energy aura around them slowly turned golden yellow. Not only that, the hair of the two of them also transformed into golden yellow. Nani. Seeing this scene, Kelton's eyes widened suddenly. Very good. Seeing that Gabe and Caulifla had successfully transformed into Super Saiyan 1, Su Ming smiled with satisfaction. Successful. Is this the transformation of Super Saiyan? It feels so powerful. At this moment, I have the illusion that I can blow up a planet by raising my hand. Gabe and Caulifla suddenly exclaimed excitedly. This is not an illusion, you now. No, even before you transformed into Super Saiyan, you still have the ability to easily destroy a planet. Su Ming smiled slightly, glanced at one side and was a bit disappointed, but it was Kale who was very happy for Gabe and Caulifla, so he couldn't help but walk to her side, stretched out his hand and gently rubbed her head. He opened the mouth and said, Cal. Your potential is too great, and their method of transformation doesn't apply to you. In fact, as early as a month ago, Kale successfully transformed into a super transformation form. At that time, it was Su Ming who beat Caulifla violently, which angered Kale, who had a certain complex, and made him successfully transform into the super transformation form. That terrifying energy, at that time, can be said to be except that Su Ming was very calm. Gabe and Caulifla were terrified by Kale's super transformation. That's right. Caulifla also walked up to Kale, and said softly, we all know your potential. After you really control that transformation, I think that the one who truly has the ability to protect our homeland will be you. Elder sister. Kale looked at Caulifla, with a look of hope on his face. Is what you said true? Real. Caulifla nodded emphatically. Congratulations to the host, the task has been completed at the perfect level. Get quadruple critical strike rewards. The progress bar of the domain of gods plus 8%, combat power plus 400 Jing, self-extreme power sign. Receive the reward now or delay the reward. Get it now. Su Ming didn't even think about it, and directly chose to receive the reward now. Moment. There was a warm feeling all over his body, and Su Ming immediately checked his character attribute panel. Host. Su Ming. Level. 20. Realm. 13% of the Realm of God. Bloodline. Human. Combat power. 550 Beijing. Skills. 10 times Kaioken without side effects, 1.2 seconds flash time, destructive power, reverse time by 30 seconds, self-extreme power mega, perfect ultra instinct, advanced version of instant transmission. Item. Immortal Bean X999, Earth Gourmet House, Elementary Practice House. The level has not changed much, but the combat power, the domain of God, and the skill bar have all changed greatly. Among them, the task reward this time also gave him a very surprising reward. That is, the realm of self-extreme intention power and sign. Before, although he had controlled the power of destruction, he was actually unable to use this power perfectly. Now, having mastered the realm of self-extreme power sign, not to mention using the power of destruction, it is not impossible for Su Ming to enter the exclusive form of gods of destruction. I don't know what kind of expression Champa will have when she sees me entering the exclusive form of gods of destruction. Su Ming couldn't help but chuckled and shook his head. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.